and gentlemen, let's go. We ain't got no time to waste. Let's go. You are now listening to Jason Anderson, and you are in the zone.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Scott hits it, hangs it high, it's short. And could hit him. Loose ball. No signal yet. And it belongs to the Chargers. That's good. Scott puts it down. That's good. The kick is good. And the Chargers win it in overtime.
On this country. That's right.
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, a Tuesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Beards. We head up until 2 o'clock. We've got you for the next 4 hours. Talk some football today. A lot of football to get into, both the NFL and the college ranks. Major League Baseball with a Game 5, deciding Game 5 today. Thought it would be last night. Inclement weather. Little late afternoon game. Little twilight. Sorry, Yankee fans, if you had tickets to Game 5, you do not get a refund from last night. So make plans to be there today if you paid all of that money for a a series-deciding Game 5 in Yankee Stadium.
At least you got to sit in Yankee Stadium for 3 hours with no updates. Can you imagine how angry everyone had to be leaving Yankee Stadium?
I kept checking Twitter because I wanted something else to watch or have on the TV at the same time we were watching that AFC West showdown.
That wasn't enough for you on its own?
Close. It was very close. And had a very mid-90s feel to it.
Yeah, that's like, wow, that's really kind.
Huge AFC West, Denver versus San Diego.
Yeah, mid-90s.
Chargers, Broncos, mid-90s. Stan Humphries versus John Elway. You throw out the record books. You know it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out, slugfest, bloodied noses at the end of that game. It's going to be like, I don't know, a 16-13 game, maybe in overtime. The touchdowns are going to be at a premium. Offenses are going to be optional. And that's what we got last night. But I kept trying to see if there was an update. Like, I kept going to Twitter for the Yankees and the Guardians. That's typically where I get my information now. Anytime there was a rain delay with the Royals, I would just go to the Royals Twitter account, and they would post, game time is now this. Yankees at about, let's say 6 o'clock, because first pitch was going to be 6:07. So I think it was like 6 o'clock, or maybe it was before that. I don't know. But they had posted, it had to be before that, because they had posted that 7 Eastern was their Twitter. They would reassess and have an update at 7 Eastern. So at 6 o'clock. 7 o'clock came. Central. Still same tweet. 8 o'clock came. Same tweet. 8:30 came. 9 o'clock. No update. Like, I thought you were going to reassess. Like, I would be... I don't mean, I'd be pretty annoyed if I was there in the stadium wondering, what's the update here? Are you going to have an update? Is there going to be something that...
Not even in the game just being canceled or postponed or delayed, whatever. Please tell me anything. Anything at all. Hours waiting on an expensive tickets for your very high-profile baseball game.
9:01. Tonight's ALDS Game 5 game will begin in a delay. The forecast will be reassessed at 7 p.m. Eastern. And we will provide updates.
You know what makes me feel a little better?
10 o'clock Eastern is when they just said it's going to be postponed to tomorrow. That's 3 hours after they said we'll give you an update. There were no updates given. So I'd be annoyed if I was there. But you know what? I wasn't. But we get a Game 5 today. We get a couple of games going on today.
You know what really would turn my mood around if I was trapped in Yankee Stadium and then sent out after 3 hours of waiting on an update?
What's that?
Ice cream for breakfast.
Yeah, I don't know that that's something anybody would do. Who would do that? Who's having ice cream for breakfast?
Nobody.
Nobody I know.
Nobody I know is having ice cream for breakfast at the moment.
Nobody that I'm looking at right across the room.
Some days your days just get a little uptick right out of the gate, and you're like, oh, you know what? I don't know what today was going to be, but now I know. Today's going to be a good day.
Is it?
And it is.
Good for you.
Shout out to Bluebell Ice Cream.
You know what? It tastes just like the good old days.
It really does.
It's like the good old days going on right now. It was the good old days of the 90s football last night watching that one.
Little peppermint with the little peppermint bark.
Oh, okay.
Oh, one of my favorite ice creams of all time.
Awesome. I'm going to have to enjoy some in the break.
Why not start right now?
I will. First break at about 45.
I would say.
We'll get into that. Right, Beards?
Whoa, hey, we're moving quick today.
Right, Beards? We're going to go early break, 10:40. Early break today. So here's how the show lines up. Adam Teicher from ESPN, our Chiefs Insider, will be our guest coming up at 11 o'clock.
And we'll ask him his favorite flavor of ice cream.
That's right.
Everybody today is getting asked that question.
And that's it, and then we'll hang up on him.
Well, I mean, you can open with it.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate it, man. We'll talk with Braden Gall from Athlon Sports and ESPN Radio and the 440 Podcast Network and his mini podcast, Like the Friend Gentleman and a Football Show, and get his thoughts on college football and the Big 12 and games coming up this weekend with KU and Baylor on the road after the loss to Oklahoma, K-State after the bye, taking on TCU this weekend, and Mizzou coming off of a bye, taking on Vanderbilt, which is it's not a must-win, It's like one of those, what's a must-win? Describe a must-win.
This game is a must-not-lose.
That's right. That's right. It's one of my favorite lines from The Departed. There are some guys you can hit, and there are some guys you can't hit. He ain't exactly a guy that you can't hit, but don't hit him.
Yes.
There are must-win games, and there are games you need not lose. This ain't exactly a must-win game, but you better not lose it.
That's right.
For Mizzou. Because if that was a person you can't hit and you hit him, you'd be dead. If you lose this game, your job and the era at Mizzou with you as the head coach might take a Nas pressing button race to the finish line with a loss on Saturday.
You're not going to get fired.
No.
But you're probably not going to be asked to stick around for much longer.
That's right. Lose this game and good luck.
I
have a particular set of skills.
It'd be a hope smotherer of a game, I think. You got to be able to sell at least a little taste of hope. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you can lose to Vanderbilt and do that. I think you lose to Vandy and the program folds, I think is how that works.
Vandy will snuff out some hope. Vandy wins, snuff out hope with their opponents.
Vandy is there to be an article for relegation in the SEC. Like you rise throughout the conference ranks and you kind of get from into the Big 12. And, you make this jump to the SEC, but then if Vanderbilt football beats you, you actually get relegated all the way back down to the MAC. You have to work your way back up again.
Well, so it doesn't just go like tiers of Power 5.
It probably should.
You don't get relegated to then the ACC.
Maybe you should, because then if you lose,
and then the Big 12, and then the Pac-12.
How do we? Let's continue.
And then the AAC after that.
That's right.
To then the MAC and Mountain West and Conference USA, and you keep struggling, then you end up in the Sun Belt, and then of course you end up in the MIAA at some point. So Mizzou and Northwest Missouri State, 40 years from now, that huge rivalry going on in the MIAA. But if you were to win the MIAA as often as Northwest does, then they should be advanced and brought up to the Sun Belt and Conference USA. And, would they have to go through FCS? I mean, they don't.
You
Just
lose to
skip
Rutgers
FCS.
out of the Big 10. You get relegated to the Pac-12. You
That's right.
lose to Colorado. You get relegated out of the Pac-12.
AAC you go.
And then AAC time, all of a sudden, you lose to South Florida. And you go, I didn't realize South Florida has been so stinky there, but...
They've been struggling.
Yeah, haven't been keeping the closest eye outside of the... there are a few teams in the AAC that might become locally relevant very shortly.
Northwest just skips the FCS. For as successful as... and I know Pitt State won. I'm just saying over the years of the success that they have had, that they would be the team that would have the opportunities every year to then advance to the Sun Belt.
I think college football, more than any other sport in America, is prime for a promotion relegation system.
So easy.
Then the SEC really could just mean more.
Because you know what college football is no longer? A geographic like-minded, institutional-led division conference. It is now coast to coast.
Well, let's not get silly, Jason. The conferences have to matter from geographical reasons.
That's a good
That's
point.
been long established in college sports. That's not going to change anytime soon.
As long as they are connected from the Atlantic to the Pacific,
That's right.
then that matters.
If I get any of these non-contiguous teams trying to get into the SEC, I'm going to have to put my foot down.
Yep. Which is also an issue when
How's Alaska football?
there's a team in London that's going to try to get into the SEC.
Yeah, that's true. But man, think of the TV market.
We don't even play college sports. We play club sports. We play football.
Academy.
Football. It's not the SEC, though. So we'll talk with Braden Gall about that coming up.
I think Braden,
at noon.
you know Braden much better than I do. I think Braden would like promotion
love
relegation in college football, right? That
I
seems
think
right
he
up his alley.
I think he'd love the conversation. I don't know that he would go for the promotion relegation. I'm not sure. I've never asked him about that, but I think he would enjoy the conversation.
I think so too.
Which, by the way, Jordan Poyer driving or taking a bus or a van or whatever it was.
Bro, can we stop?
From Buffalo to Kansas City, like, okay, fine, that it was his job. He couldn't fly, so he drove or was driven. What if the game was in London? How would he get there? Would he have to take a boat?
Where do you draw the line? Would he have gotten on a boat to London?
Right, because he couldn't fly. It's a much longer flight.
Presumably, he just wouldn't have played. But I love the question is much more fun in the realm of when is it too much here?
Yeah.
When is the Madden bus not going to? If it's not going to get you across the pond, what are you going to do here, Jordan?
Just gotta jump on a. Can I get a ride over there? Can we rent him a boat? A ship?
I know we talk about player safety and like head and neck circumstances a lot recently, but there was the Ryan Clark clip we played around all that where Mike Tomlin was talking about not letting him play in Denver with the sickle cell issue because the altitude was like a threat to his life. Earlier this year, Jameis Winston was playing football with multiple fractures in his back, parentheses, with no chance for re-injury. Yeah. Okay.
No, there's never a chance for re-injury at all.
If you aren't physically cleared to get on an airplane, you can't be physically good to play NFL football.
I guess it has something to do with the cabin pressure and the pressure on then your lungs.
What
and
about
everything.
the pressure of Michael Burton on a lead block?
No.
I don't think that sounds very good for my ribs or whatever.
It's not in a cabin at 30,000 feet.
I guess.
So it's much different.
Yes, man. I just, we draw some funny lines in this sport.
That's right. So Braden Gall coming up at noon. Todd Leabo, we'll talk with him at 1 o'clock. He may be back from Big 12 Media Days today. The women's basketball Big 12 Media Days going on today. Brett Yormark will have his press conference leading into the basketball season. So Todd Leabo will be down there and talking with some of the individuals and hearing from the commissioner of the Big 12. And then we'll talk with him at 1 o'clock. We will be down at Big 12 Media Days for basketball tomorrow. Broadcasting live down there and giving you the sights and sounds of Big 12 Media Day in basketball, hopefully getting a chance to talk to some of the coaches around the conference on the show, along with hearing from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and their press conference on a Wednesday and Cynthia Freeland. So a packed show tomorrow, but we'll be hanging out, and the Big 12 Media Days on the men's side will be going on tomorrow. 913-912-4810 is the text line to be a part of the show, 913-912-4810. All right, so the Chiefs cleared cap space with Travis Kelce. Let's hear Field Yates yesterday.
This mother bleeper, Field Yates.
Unbelievable. And we were talking about many different things, and this kind of just slid by. I take full responsibility for this. 100% full responsibility for this.
I'm fuming.
Because this required a follow-up.
I'm going to have some more ice cream.
And it is my fault, and I apologize, especially when the news comes out this morning with the tweet from Field Yates in restructuring the contract with Travis Kelce, freeing up some $3+ million to the salary cap this year. Here's Field Yates yesterday. Do you think the next week or two is going to see Christian McCaffrey, Brian Burns, and we'll see who else from the Panthers that'll be on different teams that are going to try to find that missing piece?
I'd be surprised. By the way, the Chiefs will be okay on the cap space front. Don't worry about that one sooner than later. But I will say this.
And then he went on to say other things, and I don't remember what he said, but clearly that part should have been noted on the Chiefs will be fine on the cap front sooner rather than later. So texting with Field this morning, and he was like, yeah, sorry I was being coy yesterday.
I heard you, Field. I caught it.
Yeah, you did.
I knew. Oh, I was so. I
As soon
saw
as
that tweet from him this morning, and I was.
Yep.
He gave us a
Yeah.
little
Nibble.
nibble. Peeled the quarterback just a little bit. I sat there and thought, that's interesting.
He gave you a
Fields.
small cup of Bluebell.
A small, delicious. I just had to
And
buy that
not-
Christmas cookie ice cream, and suddenly I feel better again.
And not a bowl. Not a bowl.
I need the whole.
Not a serving.
I need the whole half gallon of good stuff there, Field.
He gave you a little appetizer for
right.
then what could be another appetizer today with the news of Travis Kelce that could lead to the entree if there is another move. I don't necessarily think this is step one immediately leading to step two. That it is, okay, where you Chiefs are getting ready for Odell Beckham Jr. Are the Chiefs clearing cap space for Christian McCaffrey or Brian Burns or DJ Moore? Who is going to be a Chief in the next couple of weeks based on $3.45 million? Is that what the number was? $3.45 million freed up with Travis Kelce's restructuring the contract. There weren't many players they could restructure. I mean, that's the thing. What's the next highest base salary? $4 million for the year? And you're getting close to halfway through? So you could clear like $1 million? Kelce's base salary this year was $7 million. So with what's remaining on his contract this year, like $4 million left, they took 3.45 of that and then moved it to the next 3 years against the salary cap, either adding to his cap number or adding to dead money if they were to move on from him at some point. Hopefully that's not the case, that 3 years from now they're talking about the salary cap hit when they cleared $3.45 million 3 years before that in 2022. A couple of ways of looking at this. We know the Chiefs have made moves in years past. 2019, they make a move for Terrell Suggs. That was on waivers. 2021, they make a move for Melvin Ingram. And that helped last year. Got to the AFC Championship game, but they needed help with the pass rush. I think he did his job. They gave up, a 6th-rounder for him. And he improved the defense. The counting stats weren't exactly there, and I think it's easy for maybe some Steelers fans to look at it or Steelers reporters to look at it and go, yeah, see, Steelers aren't missing anything, and the Chiefs didn't get anything out of Melvin Ingram.
Chiefs would have redone that trade 100% of the time.
Absolutely. Especially now, knowing that you were going to get a bunch of draft picks with Tyreek Hill, so losing that draft pick wasn't anything that was a big deal. So we know that Brett Veach has done this in the past, which I think the immediate reaction and the natural reaction from people would be, okay, who are they going to get? You just lost to the Bills. You only scored 20 points on offense. You couldn't pressure Josh Allen. And your running game stinks. All three of the names that are talked about would help in that category. You only scored 20. Can Odell Beckham Jr. help? Yeah. Running game sucks. What about Christian McCaffrey? Certainly could help. You can't pressure the quarterback. Hey, you know that Brian Burns guy? He's got this year and next year on his contract. He's got that 5th-year option next year. So, yeah, it's going to increase with the salary cap, but affordable this year. And then do you give him a big contract moving forward and you just simply, take the money you're paying Frank Clark? Do you give the money to Brian Burns that you would have been giving Chris Jones and you trade him for a 1st-rounder at the end of this year and you exchange your dominant defensive tackle for a above-average Pro Bowl defensive end?
I can answer that
pass
one.
rusher?
No, don't do that one.
I'm just
don't
saying.
do the one that Jason just said, just in case anyone's wondering.
I'm just saying
I'm just saying don't do that one.
Well, next summer you're either extending Chris Jones or trading him.
Right, but I don't like what you just did.
But people didn't like the Tyreek Hill thing.
Yeah, and I'm just saying the Chiefs shouldn't do the one that we just laid out there either.
Right. And last year it was, why would you trade Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, that one I thought made more sense than that.
Okay.
This defense without Chris Jones gets really bad folks.
Right, but it wouldn't just be without Chris Jones. You'd be adding in Brian Burns and then draft picks for Chris Jones as well. Because the offense without Tyreek Hill becomes untenable. Right? Or tenable.
I never said that.
I didn't say you did.
But I am saying the defense would become untenable without Chris Jones. It's just a little differentiation I'm making as you go through the hypotheticals. Some of these hypotheticals are better than others.
What about untenable?
I think that this could be obtainable.
Can it be attainable?
Christian McCaffrey is obtainable right now, as broken down by the conspiracy theories on the Zone yesterday.
When does this offense get tamed?
Watch your tane.
I'm sorry. It's the tane. It's all wrong. It's not necessarily what you're saying. It's the tane of what you're saying.
Careful with the tane.
That's exactly right. I think the natural reaction is to say that this is going to lead to something else. I think what gets lost and maybe forgotten is the price of doing business throughout the season of injuries, guys coming up from the practice squad, if you have to claim anybody off waivers, if there's something like that, just simply paying the money against the cap throughout the season. Chiefs had some cap space, and then they went to having none. Why? Well, because some of the cap space they had to start using on different players coming up from practice squad, activating, things like that. That will continue to take place over the final 11 games. So this was kind of a move to, one, at minimum, keep the lights on when it comes to procedurally having your roster intact with NFL rules. It could also be that it's twofold. You take care of that while also being able to, if something comes up and makes sense, both cap and cash and compensation in the trade draft pick part of it, that you do have some wiggle room to do that. McCaffrey cost you $500,000 the rest of the way this year. That seems affordable. I think you can keep the lights on and have some procedural things with the NFL and being able to pay the practice squad players up and down and different things like that while also taking on $500,000 for Christian McCaffrey's contract. You know, it's 12 next year. You can restructure that if need be. You can cut him. You can do a lot of different things. That's not a, you can't afford him, there's no way you do that. So I think it could be both. I think first and foremost, it is just simply clearing the way to know the rest of the way you're able to take care of business in-house. And if something makes sense that Brett Veach wants to pull the trigger on and make a move, then yeah, that'd be something they can do as well.
This could ultimately just amount to that, to being pocket change. Even if it's just some of the procedural stuff that lets them sign a defensive lineman who is in the Taylor Stallworth, Danny Shelton sort of realm.
Yes.
There's one name that we've all heard of that I do think is legitimately interesting that could find a little spot between the procedural and the future Hall of Famer track. It's not Odell Beckham Jr.
Christian McCaffrey?
It's definitely not Christian McCaffrey.
Damn it.
And Ndamukong Suh is still a free agent. And the Chiefs just had their second most dynamic pass rushing defensive tackle lost for the season. Colin Saunders has had a nice year so far. I would not mind if they wanted to round out that rotation a little bit, even if it's just the pass rushing situational guy. So he's 35 years old. I don't know how much juice he has in the tank. If he was really ready to go right now, he'd probably be on a team right now. I am a little up in the air, but that is the one name that I think sort of walks that line between too big of a name to be realistic, too small of a name to care about, too small of a cap hit to care about, perhaps.
Yeah.
Suh might split that difference. If the Chiefs trade for Christian McCaffrey, I hope it happens between the hours of 10 and 2, because I would like the Twitch cameras to witness my final moments on this earth before I have a brain aneurysm and die on the radio.
Because you're so excited.
Because that's exactly right. Well read, Jason.
One other name that was brought up this morning, Stephen St. John saying that somebody who he trusts said that Eric Fisher is in KC. And
somebody tweeted that he was getting a haircut in KC recently. So I don't. That's my report.
He's also looking for houses.
That's my exclusive report.
Yeah.
Somebody tweeted he was getting a haircut.
The looking for houses is an old joke. I do think that when Stephen St. John says, "Look, this is from somebody that I trust, that would know, that I trust, that would know," says that he's in Kansas City and he's ready to go. Okay. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen. But when Wiley has a rough game like he did against Von Miller, they left him one-on-one a number of times. He got beat a few times. You wonder if then they're looking at saying, okay, well, Wiley, you can go back to being a swing tackle guard, and Eric Fisher can be our right tackle. Or our left tackle, and Orlando Brown can be our right tackle.
That would go over well, I bet.
What's he going to do, hold out?
Bet it would go over very smoothly. least. That's my prediction.
Here's the thing.
I wouldn't hate Eric Fisher being back. This team needs a third tackle and maybe a second tackle, maybe a first tackle.
Orlando Brown has said it's all about the team. That's why he showed up when he did. Leaders, team, that's when it's built. Do what I got to do to make sure this team wins. Well, if moving the right tackle, he's already said that. He's about the team. Not saying that's going to happen, but
I mean, we have
Eric
significantly more context. It's the reason he wanted out of Baltimore, and also I don't know that Eric Fisher at left tackle is an upgrade.
I know
October 18th, 2022.
I know that. Orlando Brown at right tackle is definitely an upgrade.
A lot of people are very much on edge on the construct of this offensive line right now, and so I just want to make sure that you get a little editorialization from the other side, perhaps, if you're an optimist there.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. A few other things to get into and talk about. What the Bills did, adjustments that can be made, closer look at what happened on Sunday and moving forward as well. Adam Teicher, Braden, Gall, Todd Leabo still to come here on this Tuesday. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. You're in the zone.
And there are guys you feel like are going to be. Are there guys
With Jason Anderson.
Boy, that's an unfortunate slip up.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
913-912-4810. Text says Joe Tooney left tackle, Wiley left guard, Orlando Brown Jr. right tackle.
They're not going to do that.
I mean, I'd be open for it. They're not going to do it. Text says, shut your mouth about 95, Jason.
Why do we think that I've seen this on Twitter too. Why would we think that shuffling around the offensive line would benefit it right now? I've just seen that from a lot of places. Like, oh, Joe Tooney was pretty good at left tackle in a pinch. He was. If they thought he was a left tackle, they should have just signed him to be their left tackle and saved themselves some money. I mean, I don't know. Nothing about the Chiefs' evaluation would inflict the idea that they have even considered that, right?
That would also be a signal that Orlando Brown is in the final games of his career in Kansas City.
Right, and that they have made that decision already.
They may have. Or they may have made the decision that in this offseason, we can franchise him again while trying to find and see if there is an answer for us, if you're the front office, for us at left tackle in the draft or in free agency or even looking ahead to 2024's NFL draft or free agency and franchise tag him one more year and not give him a massive extension.
Totally.
And have you tied to him for the next 4, 5, 6 years. That gives you the flexibility by playing the franchise tag this year, playing the franchise tag game next year as well. 913-912-4810. 913-912-4810. Text says, for the Chiefs trying to win the Super Bowl this year, that would be the only reason I could think of to add any players during the season. If they're not trying to win the Super Bowl, then who cares how many games? If they're trying to win the Super Bowl, then they were very unprepared starting the season. They still have no pass rush. Look, the only reason you would make a move to one of the names that are out there is because you're trying to win the Super Bowl this year. It would be a move for this year. Unless it's a Brian Burns, then it would be a move for this year. And then
this might be a day that I lose patience with texters. I don't know. I'm not trying to lose patience with texters. I love the texters. What would indicate the Chiefs have the second best record in the AFC? What would indicate they're not trying to win the Super Bowl?
And also the second best team in the AFC by almost pretty much everybody.
Yeah, any metric, any margin, any profession.
If they made a couple more plays on Sunday afternoon, we'd be talking about the Chiefs having the best record and the Bills still not being able to slay the dragon, and the Chiefs, even with their pass rush issues, which acknowledged, that they would have been prepared for the season.
Yeah.
It's just, see, here's the thing that we get into.
Why were the Chiefs not unprepared for the AFC Championship game? They needed to have a miracle happen in 13 seconds. Wow, I'm glad they started a rebuild. That team wasn't ready. No, they just made magic in 13 seconds.
But it's also like
Did you guys watch Matt Castle and Brady Quinn and all those guys?
I tried to forget doing
You guys remember Brody Croyle?
I do remember him.
Kyle Orton?
Also remember him.
He was a savior briefly. Kyle Orton!
So this is where we sort of get into, and not just that text or anything, I understand that sentiment of frustration or, okay, so you're looking to add right now, therefore you were missing something at the beginning of the season that you are now addressing. Why didn't you address that then? I understand that point. But throughout the offseason with the rookie class, knowing that when you traded Tyreek Hill, that you were going to take, it was for a long-term gain with some short-term pain. That you're not going to have Tyreek Hill. It's not going to be an easy plug and place. Whoever you bring in at wide receiver, it's going to take some time to figure out how to use them, what defenses are doing, the chemistry between Patrick Mahomes and those guys. The offensive line should still be good. And the defensive players, rookies, there were going to be some growing pains. Is Karlaftis a guy that's going to be a plug-and-place, immediate impact guy? I don't remember anybody saying that. That it was, hey, 6 games into his career, you're going to see that this guy should have been a top 10 pick, top 15 pick. It was, the guy's got a motor that doesn't stop. And he's played football for 5 minutes, it seems like. And he's going to be learning, and he is a willing learner. He's coachable, and you know he's going to put in the work to try to learn and try to be better. But it's going to take some reps, and it's going to take some time for him to be that. He is not the savior at defensive end at pass rush, which is why, All summer I was talking about who were they going to bring in to help with the pass rush. And after George Karlaftis, who are they going to bring in to help with the pass rush? Because Karlaftis and Frank Clark is not how you want to go into the season and say, we're good.
Correct.
They brought in Carlos Dunlap. I thought maybe it was going to be Melvin Ingram. I don't know if the Chiefs did or not.
The Chiefs thought it was going to be Melvin Ingram.
I think the Chiefs thought that as well, and it ended up not being Melvin Ingram, and they went and got Carlos Dunlap.
Melvin Ingram's been pretty good, by the way.
Yeah, he has.
Emmanuel Ogbah and Melvin Ingram, I guess, go to Miami and find your home.
Yeah. But as far as like being unprepared for the season, I think they were prepared for the season. It's just the commentary and what people thought was going to be the case throughout the course of the season is tougher to remember and live day by day with.
For sure.
When you're watching the games individually and specifically, and then you take a step back and go, oh, that's right, we were saying there will be growing pains with the rookies. And by saying, it's like when I moved to Wyoming. It's one thing to say, yeah, I'm willing to move. Whatever it takes, I'm willing to move. Yeah, I'll move. If that's how the career has to start and run stations up there and be the program and have my own show and do play-by-play of football, let's do it, man. I'm moving. Then you get there and you're like, holy bleep, I'm actually moved and I'm by myself. Yeah. I'm secluded. I'm in a town of like 5,000 people. I miss my family, my friends, everybody. In my mind before I moved, it's different than actually living it.
Absolutely.
Right? Living it. And so you talk about it throughout the summer and you know, hey, growing pains, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to. The first 7 games are pretty tough for the Chiefs. Are they going to get out of that with a 4-3 record? I mean, could they possibly be 5-2? I mean, doubtful against the teams they're going up against. I mean, good luck if that's the case, but after the bye, then the schedule lets up. And it's tough because it matches up with the first part of the schedule being the toughest and also trying to get acclimated, the offense, new players, and the defense, rookies and new players, all while you're playing the best opponents of the season. Those were things we talked about and discussed, and now the Chiefs are living it.
And even I was prepared for there to be more growing pains on the defense than there have even been. The only rookie mistake that has really cost this team recently is Sky Moore returning punts. I mean, that in the scope of the rookie class really getting in their way. Josh Williams and Jalen Watson are playing at levels higher than they were expected to be playing at this point. That's an injury thing, not an inexperience for poor Josh Williams kind of thing.
You were hoping that McDuffie wouldn't miss 5 games.
Absolutely, right. The growing pains there are just in Trent McDuffie's hamstring / in the grass in Arizona. Yeah. That's where the growing pains were actually at there. Offensively, I'm going to do the thing where I go back to 2 major moves that frustrated me a little bit at the time, one more than the other, and the Chiefs are still paying the price for. And this is where I do think there's criticism from this offseason you could levy as well. What the Chiefs are paying the price for right now is drafting the wrong player in the first round a few years ago and trading for the wrong defensive end and giving him too much money. Frank Clark and his $13.7 million against the cap hit for this year, even after all that restructuring, he's a non-player. Of qualifying players with a certain number of snaps, it was a stat I saw yesterday. I'll get the numbers up next segment. But Frank Clark literally has the lowest pressure percentage out of any of these qualifying edge rushers measured for this stat. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we're talking about trading for other running backs or elevating Isaiah Pacheco or activating Ronald Jones because Edwards-Helaire is not a dynamic player. And this offense would be a lot more interesting with Michael Pittman or T. Higgins, who went right after him in the 2020 draft. Mm-hmm. If they got it wrong on Orlando Brown, who last year didn't cost the team games that I could think of, but if this year he changes the offense because he gets beat and he's highly paid and it cost them that first-round pick essentially to go get him, those are the big swing misses that you have to be paying off for years. The Chiefs are still paying off their Frank Clark mistake. They're still paying off the Clyde Edwards-Helaire mistake. They might end up cutting their losses on Brown. Maybe he turns it around. Maybe he ends up being a mid-level player that the Chiefs pay about mid-level money, and he's neither a steal nor stealing. But these big decisions that work or don't work, that's where you ultimately are going to see these scales tipped. It's not because the Chiefs didn't think they were contending for a Super Bowl this year. They just had some opportunities to be a little better than they have been. As Brett Veach has largely done a very nice job GMing this team, a couple of big mistakes have long paid-off consequences because you have to pay those suckers with interest.
We'll take a timeout. We'll talk with Adam Teicher at 11 o'clock. Do want to pass along a note from San Francisco, and that is Talanoa Hufanga is now in concussion protocol for the 49ers. That is the safety that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. That, man, this guy's playing at a high level, and he's also now we'll see if he will play this weekend against the Chiefs.
Didn't he return to the game on Sunday, and now he's in concussion protocol, you're saying? Okay, wow. All right, that's big.
Just came across the bottom line that 49ers Hufanga in concussion protocol. Okay. So we'll see. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
They've been firm up front.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Let's hear from Mina Kimes, if we can. And there's been a lot of talk about what Buffalo did defensively, what Kansas City was able to do either offensively or defensively as well. Here's Mina Kimes weighing in on what she saw and how Buffalo adjusted to defend the Chiefs as that game went on.
Earlier, I was talking about Cliff Kingsbury and the Cardinals' offense being static. The Bills' defense is dynamic. He tailors his game plans week to week, and this was no exception. You know, coming into this game, the Bills they're primarily a zone team. They played man coverage on just 28% of dropbacks. This week, that bumps up to 54%. And it's something I think we're actually going to continue seeing against the Chiefs. We saw it with the Raiders game last week as well, because these wide receivers outside of Travis Kelce aren't really consistently beating man coverage. Now, last week against the Raiders, Patrick was perfect against man coverage, but the margin for error for him is so much smaller because of the talent that they have, the absence of Tyreek Hill, and I thought the Bills played it perfectly this week.
So I heard this morning with Jeff Jadia on the, no Tyreek Hill, and that last play that ended up being an interception is Taron Johnson in that spot if Tyreek Hill is out there. The breakdown that Dan Orlovsky did was really interesting in that last play and what the Bills were able to do. There's also a breakdown in Buffalo by one of their writers that talks about how the last 2 years kind of came together in the major players of that play. So they signed Matt Milano to the big contract. And it's like, do you really want to spend that much money on an off-ball linebacker? Well, he's pretty damn good. So they signed him to that contract. He played the spy on that play. They obviously signed Von Miller. We know that. And Taron Johnson was a guy as a slot corner who they re-signed as well to keep around. They felt one of the better slot corners in the NFL. They wanted to retain him. So you've got Von Miller, Matt Milano, and Taron Johnson. And Von Miller, according to Dan Orlovsky, they had man-to-man on the left side. So with Sky Moore and then the linebacker Edmonds was going to take Jerick McKinnon out of the backfield. They played zone on the right side. So a cover 2 zone on the right side with Milano being a spy. So, and he shows Mahomes takes the snap and looks left. And as he looks left and sees Sky Moore cutting across and he sees the linebacker going to Jerick McKinnon, in his mind, man-to-man. It's man-to-man right now. So that means he's going to have the under with Sky Moore the entire way. As he escapes right, which Orlovsky says, Von Miller, that was specific to cut inside. You want Mahomes to have to almost roll around right into what you have disguised coverage with Milano then underneath to take away anything that might be that lower drag. But just a brilliant play call, okay? So then Mahomes goes right, and Orlovsky talks about Taron Johnson, that his principle is if I have an outside breaking receiver and I've got a curl by the guy to my right, I can then jump and take anything that is within whatever danger of my zone. Well, Juju broke outside, where the cornerback had MVS but handed him off to the safety and was sitting and waiting for the outside cut by Juju. Travis Kelce ran a curl, so he curls, which means that Taron Johnson's responsibility is the biggest threat in my zone, Sky Moore right there. I'm coming up to see Sky Moore coming across. Sky Moore's open, but Mahomes pump fakes because Milano was right there in the throwing lane because he was spying, giving Taron Johnson time to get there. The weak spot in the zone was MVS over the top. MVS passed the cornerback that was guarding him and then behind Taron Johnson. But Mahomes has already thought in his mind, it's man-to-man. Johnson's staying on the out route with Juju. Kyer Elam is going with MVS down the field, which leaves Sky Moore open all the way across the field. It's a great play call. They got him. It happens. They got him. Spags has got him from time to time. Mahomes has got him from time to time. Next time they match up, I wonder if they'll be ready for it. I mean, it happens in games when they're two of the best teams in the NFL. But I don't think Tyreek Hill makes a difference if on that play he's the Sky Moore drag route underneath. Everything else still happens. Like, Taron Johnson isn't running deep with Tyreek Hill, right? I mean, Tyreek Hill isn't just running straight down the field and Taron Johnson is going there and the Sky Moore underneath is open. I think that play is still that particular play. Everything else might change along the way, right? I mean, so.
What I thought was most interesting from that clip that when Mina Kimes broke that down is kind of in the big picture sense, and we'll talk about that never.
Tune in or join the Kansas City Mavericks.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson.
I heard, yeah, you're terrible.
Thank you. Good. Mark that, please, Shane. Hey, thanks. I appreciate that, man. Cool.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, hanging out on a Tuesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. We'll talk with Braden, Gall, some college football coming up at noon. Todd Leabo, 1 o'clock. We'll be hanging out at Big 12 Media Days tomorrow downtown. Women's Big 12 Media Day going on today with Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark is going to be giving his State of the Conference press conference coming up at noon. Todd Leabo will be down there for that. And anything of interest, we will play back for you with Todd Leabo coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. But we'll be down there for the men's side tomorrow with Big 12 Media Day. Let's talk some NFL football right now. Adam Teicher from ESPN. He is our Chiefs insider joining us here in the zone. Adam, what's up, man? How are you, sir?
Good, Jason. How are you doing today?
I am doing just fine. Real quick, before we get into the reaction of or your takeaway to the loss on Sunday, I've we had a caller yesterday, Tracy, who, we love, listens to the show all the time and calls in after Chiefs games and hangs out with Josh at Hollywood Casino on Thursdays. And he said, maybe change the name of the show to Overreaction Zone on Monday with callers and texters. But it was interesting, Adam, because the tenor that I felt from Chiefs fans and the reaction even yesterday with callers and texters was, I don't know that they're really taking the loss all that hard. And have you noticed the same thing, that there's more? It feels like more of a reason to okay, yeah, now you know what the Chiefs and the Bills are. You got a feel of the Chiefs. They didn't execute at certain times. Maybe the two best teams in the AFC. They'll see them again. Got to make plays. Bills did. Chiefs didn't. They had some injuries, and you move on.
Yeah, that's not a loss really that you spill a lot of venom over, Now, if you want to talk about one of those kind of losses, the Colts game is one of those games. Now, you could talk for a month about all the things they did wrong and how they blew that game, but sometimes you just tip your hat to the other team, and you can always, there are always plays you can look at, and we do look at after close losses that, hey, if they'd made them, they could have won the game. But, the other guys are pretty good sometimes too, so I feel like that was just two teams kind of getting after each other, and one team had to lose, and certainly there's some things the Chiefs can do better. I mean, their pass rush is, I think, a real concern right now. That's one area I think they've got to really fix if they're going to eventually beat the Bills down the line. I mean, to me, that was the biggest difference of the game. The Bills had Von Miller and the Chiefs didn't,
Yeah, absolutely. And you saw how the Chiefs were, affected by that, and how Josh Allen at times was not affected by that. I mean, the final plays of the Chiefs' last three drives, and then the final play for the Bills in the game, pretty evident of that Von Miller stopped those last three drives with his pass rush and a sack, and also diving over to tackle Mahomes with only a 3-yard gain, who, without Von Miller doing that, does pick up a first down on that scramble because he's got lots of room to run with the All-22 coming out yesterday. And then, just even putting pressure on going inside and being able to split Wiley and Trey Smith to where it does force Mahomes out to the right, and juxtapose that, Adam, with counting 5 seconds of Allen sitting in the pocket very comfortably on the touchdown pass to Dawson Knox. And coverage was there. Nobody was open, and he even then had to direct Dawson Knox to a spot to be open before he threw the football because he had 5 seconds. I mean, it's massive in the difference of that. One quarterback's allowed to stay clean and sit there and, ad-lib even in the pocket, and the other one's trying to scramble, a second and a half after the snap.
Yeah, and you look at the Bills' first 2 touchdown passes. The first one, the Chiefs sent 7 after him and didn't get there, and left Josh Williams alone with Gabe Davis, and they paid for it. And then on the second touchdown pass, they sent 6 after him and didn't get there, and left Josh Williams alone with Stephon Diggs. So, They've got to figure that out. To me, that's a big hole in their game right now is their pass rush. I mean, they're doing some good things at times, but certainly not consistently, and certainly not when they rush only 4.
Are those the two best teams you think in the AFC? That if things fall in the way that they probably should, it is not a guarantee that they will be matching up again, as both teams talked about after the game on Sunday.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think we're going to see that again, and probably in the AFC Championship game. Let's see how the seeding turns out and all that. But I would expect that we'll see that game again. Sure. And this time in Buffalo, though.
Yeah, I would think that as well. And Chiefs players talked about that too. That hey, see him again. Didn't take advantage of some of the things that were there. And that's one of the things. Like, I think there are bigger picture takeaways from this loss, Adam, that are discussion points moving forward of, is this something that will cost you an opportunity to, hold the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the year in Arizona? Or are there simply things that were like, execution, you've got to do better than that in executing? And I think those are two different things. The offensive line in pass protection against Von Miller, the defensive line in pass rush, I think those are a couple of things. The execution part that I think is just like, it's probably going to be better more times than not. The screen pass to Michael Burton was wide open. I mean, he might have scored a touchdown on that play, and Mahomes threw it with too much heat. And, out of the reach with two hands of Burton, if he lofts it, it might have been a touchdown. That's an execution thing. And then the touchdown pass to MVS, Creed Humphrey just floats. Down a couple of yards too much when the other offensive linemen stopped where they're supposed to stop, and Creed Humphrey just kept floating, down, 2-3 yards past the line of scrimmage, and it's called back, and it's not a touchdown, and it ends up being an interception there. Those are like those execution things that I would expect would be better, because I think Creed Humphrey is better than that and knows that he can't do that. And Mahomes forcing some things, certainly the one in the end zone, maybe he doesn't do that next time. I think there are bigger picture things that we can talk about, and also some things that I think are just like, all right, execution, do better next time, because the play was there, the scheme was there, and the pass or the block or the being in the right spot just wasn't where it should have been when you're facing off against a team like Buffalo.
Yeah, and some of these things that you're talking about, the bigger picture things, I think the Chiefs, even without those things, the Chiefs are still good enough to beat a lot of the teams they're going to play the rest of this regular season, and probably good enough. They're still probably good enough to win the AFC West, or at least get in the playoffs. But if they don't fix those things, are they good enough to beat a bunch of good teams in the playoffs, including the Buffalo Bills, So I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I think there's some of these things will be fatal flaws when they start playing, great teams, when they, it's one or done type things. And so I think these are things that might eventually wreck their season, but probably not big enough right now to kind of derail things. I don't think.
Yeah, one of the interesting things to take away from the game is that both sides look at it and go, boy, you had opportunities to win. Chiefs look at it and say, boy, they had opportunities to win. Chiefs players saying, we let this one get away, we let that one get away. If those things happen, then you win the game. While the Bills are the victors, and so, they feel good about it. They might be coming away from that game going, man, a couple plays here or there, it shouldn't have been that close. We shouldn't have had to come back. Fumbling, pitching the ball off a guy's face mask when you're doing whatever you want to, driving down the field, and a couple of things like that. Boy, if you don't make those mistakes, this game shouldn't have been that close.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. And, hey, if the Chiefs had gone down and scored a touchdown on that final drive and won the game, the Bills would be picking at all this stuff.
Yeah,
saying,
right.
We're just not good enough. And we had three guys right there when Juju Smith-Schuster caught the ball and he spun away from us and ran away from us. All we got to do is make that tackle, and maybe we win that game. So they're picking it all, and the fumble early in the game. They're picking at all this stuff, too. That's just the nature of this stuff. You do that when you lose a close game. And so that's that's going on here and not in Buffalo this week. But but I don't think it means the Chiefs are the terrible team here. I don't think that at all.
We'll never be able to quantify it, but just in your opinion, how big of an impact was the Chiefs missing pieces in Willie Gay, McDuffie, Brian Cook, Rashad Fenton, those four guys out there for the Chiefs? How big of an impact would they have made in the game if you're just simply guessing in at least a number we'll never be able to quantify.
Yeah, no, I think Willie Gay would have, against that particular opponent, would have had been a big part for the Chiefs, and does Trent McDuffie get burned a couple times on those touchdown passes? Is he, I don't know. I mean, there's no way of knowing, but I think it had an effect. But the Bills are beat up too a little bit. They were missing some guys as well, so. I think you can say that from week to week, but I think we'll maybe get a better answer to that question soon because Trent McDuffie looks like he's going to be back this week. I would suspect Willie Gay would play this week, although I don't know that one yet. But I would suspect he'd be back, and if the other two guys aren't back, then. Cook and Fenton, then if they aren't back this week, I would certainly expect them to be back first game after the bye.
One thing that's not even being talked about, really, at least from our perspective, so other people may have discussed it ad nauseum, I don't know, is that, we talk about the pass rush and guys that were missing for the Chiefs, and we haven't really even talked about that Brown left that game early for the Bills, their right tackle, and so they were playing with a guard/tackle at right tackle the rest of the game, more than half the game, and they still really couldn't pressure Josh Allen, even with blitzes. Like that's another part of it to where, it goes in the category of you really got to figure this out and fix it. Because I thought when he went down and held his ankle and then he turned down the cart, he wanted to walk there, but he was listed as questionable. He never returned. I thought that was, at the time, I'm like, that's pretty impactful. That now they're going to be playing with a backup right tackle, and what Spags wants to do is there's some confusion. Does that allow Chris Jones, who they've lined up at the, that left defensive end spot against the right tackle, does that make it more tenable for him to get back there and get some sacks? And he did, even with or without the trip there. But that's also not really being discussed, is that, they lose their right tackle in the second quarter and he doesn't return, and the Chiefs, it didn't feel like they took advantage of that.
No, they didn't take advantage of that, and to me, that's job number one, more than pass protection. I think right now, I feel like for the Chiefs to get to where they want to go, this pass rush has to perk up. And we've talked numbers, and in terms of sacks, they're better. I mean, they're way better than they were last year. They're on a much better pace, an acceptable pace. Last year they just had 31. Now they're on pace for mid to upper 40s, so that number is okay in and of itself. But
right.
The consistency on their pressure is just not good enough. They're not succeeding there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Adam Teicher is our guest from ESPN. You mentioned that if McDuffie's healthy, does he get burned down the sideline by Davis or Stephon Diggs? The one thing that I've wondered in the last 5 weeks, because L'Jarius Sneed has played some awesome football, and going back to that Tampa Bay game where they put him on Mike Evans after the Brady to Evans touchdown, which was a brilliant throw, and Watson was there, but, not much you can do. And then next time out, it was, the commentators talked about it and said it was almost like they were daring the Bucs to go and do it again when they put Sneed on Evans and left him alone and said, do it, because we've got L'Jarius Sneed over here now. And he made the play. It was an incomplete pass. So on and so forth. So does McDuffie get burned by Davis or Stephon Diggs? One thing that I've wondered, Adam, is the different ways that Spags may utilize McDuffie when he's out there. Because he's talked about him being a blitzing cornerback. He's talked about him being a really good tackling cornerback. Are there times where McDuffie's the guy he brings and it's Sneed on Gabe Davis or Stephon Diggs one-on-one on the outside because McDuffie's able to do the things that L'Jarius Sneed can do in blitzing that maybe Spags doesn't feel like he gets from Williams or Jalen Watson? I'm just interested to see in more than a half of football the different ways that Spags may look to utilize McDuffie, and does that allow him to put Sneed on somebody else's better receiver one-on-one and feel like I've got trust there, while also a guy that I think is going to get to the quarterback because he's a pretty damn good blitzer as well.
Yeah, and we could see that. But, one thing about McDuffie is he, like Watson and like Josh Williams, he's a rookie. And that does take a little experience sometimes. A lot of times that takes a little bit of time to learn that craft and learn how to time it up and how to disguise it and how to beat some blocks and all that. And I think it took Snead a little bit of time to learn to do that. So is McDuffie ready to go in that role? Is he ready to take over? So I don't know. It's a good question, but I guess I'd be surprised to see that change at least anytime soon.
Visiting with Adam Teicher from ESPN. Is there a concern with McDuffie and maybe being a guy that, has had some issues with injuries so far, with OTAs, a little thing here or there, training camp, a little thing here or there, hamstring that he's now missed 5 games with? So far with McDuffie, it's been not a lot of talk at training camp because he's just been solid. And, well, he's missing practice for this and missing practice for that, and he's out for this and he's out for that. Is there a concern of a guy that, so far early in his career that it may be somebody that just has some issues with injuries?
Yeah, I think it's a little too early for that. One of them, the one he got in the preseason was concussion. He took a pretty good hit in that preseason game. So, hey, I don't. With regards to concussions, that could happen to anybody, and this other thing that, the Chiefs blame on the bad grass, this hamstring that the Chiefs blame on the bad grass in Phoenix. Well, okay, let's just see. I think these were kind of two maybe isolated or freak type things, but let's see. It's certainly something to watch, and you don't want to bring a hamstring back too early. The Chiefs don't seem to think they're doing that, but so maybe he is ready to go and he'll be fine. But that's one injury you always watch when a guy comes back for an aggravation.
And to be fair to Trent McDuffie, coming out of college, it wasn't an issue. It wasn't something where this guy's had injury issues. This guy hasn't been available. If he's got all the measurables, but man, can he stay on the field? That wasn't the thing with McDuffie. So I'm hoping it is just early on you train for the combine, and then you get into actual football stuff, and you got a little tweak of a soft tissue muscle here, so you miss a couple of days of OTAs. You mentioned the concussion, and then bad grass slipped an awkward way, and you hurt your hamstring, and they are just being extra cautious. I would be interested if, the Chiefs like to have guys practice for a week when their window opens up before they activate them and play them. But if that was the AFC Championship game in Buffalo, would McDuffie have been healthy enough to play? Or was it, no, he needs one more week, and whether it's the AFC Championship game or week number 6, because those are always different designations. It's always like, okay, if you get injured here, it happens. We'll deal with it after that if you re-injure something, but you may not be playing on Monday, the entire team, if you don't get out there and go right now. So I would wonder if, was it good enough in a crunch time, have-to-have-it game that McDuffie could play, as opposed to, it's week 6, let's look at the bigger picture, and if you're favoring the hamstring just a little bit, well, now maybe you hurt a calf, or, something else happens along the way in week 6.
Yeah, I think if this were a game in January, he would have played. McDuffie would have played against the Bills, but it wasn't a must-win. It wasn't a had-to-have-it, and so I'm with the Chiefs. It's a long season, and you're going to need him in January more than you need him now. So I'd rather err on the side of caution right now and then have him later rather than throw him out there in a situation like this and maybe have this thing linger. Or have him injure something else, or one of those deals. Adam
Teicher from ESPN is our guest. It's The Zone. Jason Anderson with you, heading up until 2 o'clock. The Chiefs' defense versus heavy personnel. We talked last week about the Raiders and them going extra offensive linemen, bringing in a fullback as well, and the success they had on the running downs. And the running game overall with Josh Jacobs, is that something the Bills would take advantage of? And going back and watching some games a year ago that the Bills were in 21 personnel, a number of times against the Chiefs. And they played, I think the number is 5 times as much 21 personnel against the Chiefs than they had in any game this year. And they ran 21 personnel 4% against the Ravens, and they ran it a third of the time against the Chiefs on Sunday at the tune of 7.3 yards per play. So Spags talks on Thursday, and we'll see. But is there an issue with the Chiefs and when these teams are going heavier personnel? And Willie Gay not being there certainly matters. So then if you're going base defense with Darius Harris and Chanel, as opposed to maybe Darius Harris, Willie Gay, and Nick Bolton, that could be a difference. But concern that more teams, copycat league, will go, yeah, we see what's going on with the Chiefs, and we can do that. We can run down their throat, keep Patrick Mahomes on the sideline because they can't counter a heavy run package.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that the frequency that the Bills did that was based off what they saw from the Raiders the week before against the Chiefs. I don't think there's any doubt. So, yeah, I think that's something the Chiefs are going to have to solve. And, I don't think the Chiefs are handling that situation very well right now. It's interesting. I mean, is it a personnel thing? Is it a scheme thing? I mean, Leo Chenal's not getting a whole lot done out there right now. And it's interesting that what you said, when Willie Gay comes back, maybe their three base linebackers will be Gay, Bolton, and Harris as opposed to Gay, Bolton, and Chenal. And that's an interesting, certainly a different dynamic there on that particular personnel group. And I'm wondering whether that's a better choice for the Chiefs as well.
Yeah,
I really do.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, okay, so the positions they play as opposed to Chanel off the field and Harris on the field. Like, okay, we'll kind of figure it out if this guy gives you a better chance of making plays out there as opposed to, no, this is our base personnel, because teams are clearly saying we want to put this team in their base personnel because, I mean, let's be honest. As I've said, like, teams' base personnel is really nickel now. I mean, that's kind of what they do. They call it the base with the 4-3 or you run a 3-4, but really the nickel package is what most teams do now with two linebackers if you're running a 4-3, and then you got the 5 defensive backs. But yeah, Chanel not being on the field right now would be optimal for the Chiefs moving forward. Interested to hear what Spags would say.
It's funny since you put it that way. I mean, if that's what the teams are saying by playing heavy, that we want three linebackers out there for the Chiefs, that means they're saying they're choosing Leo Chenal to play against rather than a Josh Williams or a
Cook.
Brian Cook or in this past game it would have been Deion Bush.
Yeah.
So that's what the opponents are saying. That's saying a lot if that's indeed the statement they're making.
Visiting with Adam Teicher from ESPN. He is our guest. So the other thing that the Bills did in this game was the dropping 8, bringing 3 defensive linemen. We saw the last couple of drives for the Chiefs that Milano became a spy, and there were 3 rushers against Patrick Mahomes in the offensive line. Bring 3, Milano spy, drop 7 in coverage. The Bengals did that as well. Is this the new Chiefs need to figure out how to defeat it? Where, last year it was the cover 2, the shell, and take away the deep stuff. Is this the next, phase of defenses saying, okay, we think we've got something against the Chiefs right now, so we'll continue the copycat? Having Von Miller helps, certainly. That helps. But is that something you think with teams that would have a defensive end that could wreak some havoc, that's something they go, okay, we're dropping 8, we're dropping 7, we're having a spy on Mahomes, and we're bringing 3?
Yeah, I would think if that's going to be something that's going to be, the Chiefs are going to see a lot, they would have seen more of it earlier in the year than they have. It's one thing to say you're going to do it; it's another to succeed with it. And you got to be able to get some pressure. I mean, you can't just let Mahomes sit back there. You've got to be able to do that with 3 guys. It doesn't have to be quite like it is if you're rushing 4, but you still can't let him sit back there for 6 or 7 seconds. So. It's a matter of succeeding with it, but if teams can do that, I mean, if they can get some pressure without by doing what you're saying, maybe rushing just 3, then that's something the Chiefs are going to have to figure out an answer for. But I just feel like the fact we haven't seen much of that this year, given how the Bengals succeeded with it, and not just succeeded with it, but succeeded spectacularly. That's something to keep an eye on, but I just feel like maybe a lot of teams figure they can't do it well enough to execute it the right way.
I mean, if Bosa plays for the 49ers, he's a guy that could do that. Khalil Mack or Bosa later on against the Chargers. We saw what the Raiders were able to do with, Crosby and Chandler Jones. And so, yeah, they'll go up against other defensive lines that are pretty good that they'll be facing off against. And to that point, Andy Reid said yesterday, and I made a note of it, that he said they've been fortunate to go up against good defensive lines so far this year. Thought that was an interesting way of putting it for his offensive line. And obviously that's the bigger picture view.
Yep, and I caught that as well, and maybe that means that they're, or he seems to think they'll be better for all this in the end. We'll see if indeed they are.
Adam Teicher is our guest. Do you think, I have to get inside his head, but do you think Mahomes trusts his offensive line to protect him?
No, I don't. It's the tackle play has been so inconsistent this year that you have to wonder a little bit. And, the Chiefs clearly aren't going downfield like they used to. And I don't believe that's just a Tyreek Hill thing that's not here anymore. There's more to that than that. You look at the three longest plays the Chiefs have had this year have been all by Juju Smith-Schuster. He had the 240-plus plays the other day, and then he had a 53-yarder against the Colts. All three of those were similar in that they were catch-and-run type things. They were short passes that he made into big plays. I mean, the Chiefs just aren't getting the ball downfield. The one exception really is the touchdown against the Chargers. You remember to Justin Watson. That one was down the field, and so that's the one real big pass play they've had all year long where the throw was down the field, and they're just not even trying it anymore. And so I feel like that has to do maybe more with protection than they don't have the guys who can do it. I don't think they've got the guys who can run that. It's can you block the quarterback? That's always job one. I mean, any pattern you run, it takes time. Can we block for our quarterback? And right now, you got to wonder whether the Chiefs have confidence in this thing.
The irony of that being the deep pass going over the top was that Mahomes also had to elude pressure. And to be able to then throw the ball to Watson to allow him to run that route. So, they did that, and he still had pressure up the middle and around the edge and had to sort of move around and then, throws the ball as he's getting hit. It was a great throw and a great play by Mahomes. The reason I ask, if there's trust is because, Mahomes made some spectacular plays. I thought on Sunday he got into sort of old school Mahomes of, all right, my back foot has hit, and now I'm going to start moving around to try to find something, and I'm not really going to relax in the pocket and go through the progressions. I thought he left some clean pockets on Sunday, and he's going to do that. It is just who he is. I don't think you put the reins on him and say, you're staying in the pocket no matter what. But we've seen times where Mahomes has had games where he's, been able to really have that feel of, okay, they're getting pressure right here. Now I need to escape. All right, this is a clean pocket. I'm staying right here. And I just wonder going into that game if there wasn't that much trust from the offensive line, that in his mind that it was, as soon as I feel it, I got to get out. I got to get out of there because Von Miller and Rousseau and Basham and Phillips and these guys are going to be able to pressure me, that I can't just trust it that the pocket's going to form around me.
Yeah, and that well could be. And, but I don't feel like in general, the Bills rushed the quarterback any better than, say, the Raiders did. They've got a couple pretty good edge guys too, and so if so, maybe he picked this was a game for whatever reason he felt that way a little more, and we'll see what the 49ers bring on Sunday. If Nick Bosa plays, man, we remember what a dominant game he had in the Super Bowl, and I expect nothing less from him this week. If he plays and he's healthy, I think the Chiefs have a real problem right there, no matter what they do with him or where they line him up, because that's going to be a real problem if he plays and he's healthy.
Adam Teicher is our guest from ESPN. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling one more segment with Adam Teicher, talk some run game with him, and also Chiefs clearing up cap space today, restructuring Travis Kelce's contract, clearing up $3.45 million in the cap to see what that may be. We'll pick Adam's brain on that. More Zone rolling along next here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Snags. Spags was talking about Sneed. Snags was talking about speed.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
You know, Josh and I were just talking in the break there, some gambling stuff, you know, which is what we typically talk about in the break.
So rare for us.
Beards has an issue. And
Beards is the one with the problem.
The number on Friday was 10-3 in primetime games that the Chiefs do not play in that hit the under. That is now 12-3 in primetime games that the Chiefs do not participate in that have gone under the total. So I'm going to go ahead and go 3 for 3 this weekend with under on those 3 games. Maybe I parlay all 3 of them with the unders. I don't know what the total.
The barn burner stat from Mike Schur on Twitter was there is exactly one NFL game in Week 7 where both teams have winning records, and it's the 3-2 Titans against the 3-2-1 Colts.
Darn right. There you go.
You got some 500 teams.
That's right.
You got some close ones.
3-3 49ers, 4-2 Chiefs. Adam Teicher with us here in the zone, and that is a game that we'll get your thoughts on here in just a little bit, Adam. But Travis Kelce, contract restructured, $3.45 million. It was freed up for the Chiefs. Procedural in your mind of you've just simply got to be able to, you know, make some moves throughout the season of, a practice squad to, you know, the active roster, waivers if need be, that just simply sort of keeping the lights on, for lack of a better term, you need to clear up space? Or is this step 1 to then step 2 of a specific move they have in mind?
Yeah, well, I would think it would be the first thing you talked about, that they've, you know, leave themselves a little flexibility to add some people as they go down the road. But this certainly could be step 1 towards clearing more space, towards bringing a bigger name in here. And so, I wouldn't put that past Brett Veach at all to go ahead and try to do something like that. So, we'll see, but more likely, I think it's that they're just trying to, you say, keep the lights on, make sure that if they lose somebody to an injury, they can replace them without, having to absolutely do the minimum thing.
If they were to make a move, would it be in the margins, or would it be one of the bigger names that is being talked about now with McCaffrey and Brian Burns from the Panthers, DJ Moore as well from the Panthers, Odell Beckham Jr. has been talked about? Like, would the Chiefs be in the market for that, or some cap space cleared up is more in the margins if a Melvin Ingram or a Terrell Suggs or something like that down the line comes available?
Well, I think it could be for either one. Certainly. I keep looking at the pass rush thing. And I don't know if Brian Burns really fills the thing there, because the Chiefs probably going to have to give up something good in terms of draft picks, and so I'm not sure that's the kind of thing I have in mind. But maybe like a Jerry Hughes, who may be available and would be cheap in terms of a trade. Is that a guy who could help the Chiefs? Because this pass rush thing really needs to get ramped up, I think. So, I could see it really going in a number of different ways, but I don't see him giving up a good draft pick for somebody at this point. Yeah. And definitely not McCaffrey. I don't see that one happening.
And definitely not a first rounder, since Clark Hunt has already said you are not trading a first rounder back. You're not trading next year's first rounder. So, which is, I'm guessing, probably what it would take for Brian Burns to get him. I mean, he's a guy that, made his first Pro Bowl, has 4 sacks already this year, has, 15 pressures, I think, in the 6 games, and has a 5th-year option next year. But, if you're going to trade for him, you're going to have to sign him to a bigger deal. I mean, it might be like a Frank Clark type deal would be Burns this year or in the offseason. So, yeah, if they're making that move, they're making that move as in, like, this is not just this year. This is somebody we feel like is going to make a difference for the next 3, 4, 5 years, kind of like a Frank Clark type deal. And I don't think that's going to be the case right now with the Chiefs. One other name that's out there after last night, and even talking about it in the locker room, Melvin Gordon saying that he was hurt, and it bothered him that he was on the sideline. And Latavius Murray, who was picked up, last week off the Saints practice squad, got the lion's share of the carries, and Melvin Gordon has now moved to third string. That it's a name that people are saying he's probably going to get cut if he's not happy and probably not get anything in a trade. McCaffrey's been talked about because the Chiefs fans feel like the running game needs to be better. Do they have a dynamic runner? Does Melvin Gordon do anything for this running game? Like, is he better than the three guys they have? He's not better at protecting the football, I know that. But as an actual runner, would they be better served to have a Melvin Gordon on this team?
At a no-cost thing, in other words, they don't have to give up a draft pick or something like that, then maybe I could see the Chiefs being interested in doing that. But, is he a lot better than what they have right now? I feel like if he is, particularly, the Broncos, they just lost their running back. And he's still not good enough to play for them. So I just wonder about him now at this point of his career, whether, and then you throw in his fumbling issues. Is he really what the Chiefs are looking for? I don't think so. I don't know whether the Chiefs would agree with me there, but hey, I guess if it's at very minimal cost and low risk, it certainly can't hurt to bring him in and see whether he couldn't be a solution for you. But I don't think that's a crying need for the Chiefs either.
What are you seeing or maybe not seeing from the Chiefs running game as to, the lack of consistency? It was awesome against the Bucs, struggled against the Raiders at times, especially early downs, and against the Bills, same thing. They couldn't really get something going early on in the downs to help them out with shorter second and third downs like they were against the Bucs. What are you seeing or not seeing as to why the consistency hasn't been there?
Yeah, it's a real thing for the Chiefs that they just can't seem to dial that thing up when they need to. So, this is nothing we haven't seen from them before. How many games in the past has Mahomes been their leading rusher at the end of the night, or at the end of the day? So, this has happened before for them. I know he wasn't against the Bills, but that's happened before for the Chiefs. So, they've kind of dealt with this issue from time to time in the past, and hey, it's always nice to have a running game that works for you, but I feel like they have bigger issues here. This pass protection is a big thing, and on defense we've talked about it a lot. The pass rush has to perk up.
Visiting with Adam Teicher from ESPN. All right, Chiefs 49ers, we'll find out as the week goes along. Trent Williams, Bosa, Hufanga, the safety that's been playing pretty good football that is now in concussion protocol from the game over the weekend. They are dealing with some injuries. If he does not play, two of the original expected 11 starters would be healthy. Doesn't mean that they would all miss, but guys that are going through treatment this week and having to deal with questionable status and maybe you're limited at practice, they've got some real injury concerns. So maybe your thoughts on the game will be affected by what we see from injuries. But what do you think happens, and what do you expect this Sunday from Chiefs and 49ers?
Yeah, that's an interesting matchup because if the 49ers are healthy, they can play some defense. We know that. And to me, it all hinges on Nick Bosa. If he's healthy, he can affect the game in a way that Von Miller affected the game last week. So, I think the Chiefs handle business. If he is less than 100% or doesn't play a lot or doesn't play at all, I think the Chiefs are certainly the better team in that instance. But if he's healthy and can gum things up for the Chiefs, then we might have a competitive game. I'll take the Chiefs to win either way, but I don't think it'll be easy if he's playing.
Do you have and it may change as the week goes on with injuries, but do you have a score in mind maybe that you're feeling right now?
Yeah, how about 27-17, something in that range right now. But, I do want to – let's see what happens. Yeah. I may amend that before the end of the week.
Absolutely. Adam Teicher from ESPN. Adam, you're the man. Really appreciate the time, sir. Enjoy the football. We will talk next week.
Good stuff, Jason. We'll talk to you then.
Absolutely. There's Adam Teicher from ESPN, our Chiefs insider. And you know what? We may not talk to him next week because it's a bye week, so he may take the week off too. You may want to do that. Why not? It's an off week.
Adam Teicher taking time off. You think, well, what has he been on this beat for? 30 years, and now he wants a week off? Okay, Adam.
Yeah.
Put in the hours first, okay?
Yeah, I think he may actually. But that's fine if he does. He does. If not, then hey, we'll talk to him.
Oh, Adam wants to take a little break for once.
You talked all
Grind
summer.
harder.
All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue talking some Chiefs. College football coming up at noon with Braden, Gall, Todd Leabo, 1 o'clock, more zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I can walk again. I can.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Sony Michel signing with the Chargers after being released by the Dolphins. Vizio Michel is heading to the Raiders.
Good. You deserve that.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Thank you to Adam Teicher joining us from ESPN Chiefs Insider. We'll talk with Braden Gall, some college football coming up at noon. Chiefs with bye week next week. One more game against 49ers this Sunday, and we'll see as the days progress what that 49ers team will look like against the Chiefs. We played the clip from Mina Kimes in the first hour about the Buffalo Bills and what they did to adjust to the Chiefs and things like that. And obviously it's something that we'll be watching moving forward. We'll see how much teams use 21 personnel moving forward, since the Raiders did that and the Buffalo Bills did that. But obviously a copycat league, and I think it shows that the Bills had been preparing for this, had been doing some different things and expected plays, design, scheme from the Chiefs. And credit where credit is due to Leslie Frazier that, he called some plays and it worked,
Do we want to replay the Kimes clip? Because I think the percentages in there are interesting.
Absolutely.
Do you still have that up, Beards?
Yeah, let's replay it.
Let's run it back, because Mina Kimes here, NFL Live, pulled this off Twitter yesterday. She was talking about exactly what Buffalo did to adjust. We talked some on Friday about how the Bills would or wouldn't adjust to what the Chiefs were doing. Could the Chiefs go heavy and enforce their wills and make the Bills adjust? But the Bills did plenty of adjusting on their own, and I'm curious if this might become, well, as you say, it's a copycat league. Perhaps, if not a blueprint, maybe a place to start for teams going forward.
Earlier, I was talking about Cliff Kingsbury and the Cardinals' offense being static. The Bills' defense is dynamic. He tailors his game plans week to week, and this was no exception. Coming into this game, the Bills they're primarily a zone team. They played man coverage on just 28% of dropbacks. This week, that bumps up to 54%. And it's something I think we're actually going to continue seeing against the Chiefs. We saw it with the Raiders game last week as well, because these wide receivers outside of Travis Kelce aren't really consistently beating man coverage. Now, last week against the Raiders, Patrick was perfect against man coverage, but the margin for error for him is so much smaller because of the talent that they have, the absence of Tyreek Hill, and I thought the Bills played it perfectly this week.
So I think less about the individual, circumstances of, well, what would Tyreek Hill have changed this play or that play? Mm-hmm. I think mentioning Tyreek Hill's name there is fair, because he's a man beater. I mean, that is a guy that you can match him up with literally anybody, and you're going to know that 10 has the advantage in that matchup. But more looking forward, as sort of a prescriptive angle on this, I do actually think this is what teams are going to at least try first going forward. Now, as Mina said, the Raiders played man, and Mahomes was dropping passes into the hip pockets of these guys. But it worked for the Bills, and I think much like those cover two shells became the narrative around the Chiefs last year, I think we might be at the beginning of an on-ramp of this becoming the narrative about the Chiefs. Do they have enough men to beat man? Just your one-on-one dude matchups. And obviously, you're going to get help in different places.
Yeah.
It's never as binary as it seems. But this idea of, hey, you know what? We're going to go ahead, and I'll use my same phrase from last week. We're going to go ahead and just get a Gatorade bucket off the sideline and just smack Travis Kelce with that, at least between the 20s, which is basically what the Raiders did. And then once he got to the red zone, he was a touchdown scoring machine. But we'll just beat Travis Kelce for 80 yards in the middle of the field and say, hey, can Marquez Valdez-Scantling or Juju Smith-Schuster or Justin Watson, or maybe it finally becomes Sky Moore time? Can any of these guys get away from man coverage? Tyreek Hill could make that look easy. So teams play more zone. Travis Kelce eats. They play more of those shells behind, put everything in front of them. Now it's, hey, we'll just man up until one of you guys can beat us. The Bills really selling out and almost doubling their man percentage for this game, I think is something that other defenses are going to take a note of. Certainly the Chiefs offense will note it as well, but the question is, do they have a counter plan?
And I would love to know, looking at last year, I know that teams ran more zone than they are this year against the Chiefs. They are running way more man coverage against the Chiefs this year. I would like to know what those numbers were and look at the plays and say, okay, this man beater was called and this is why the play worked. Was it because Tyreek just beat his guy in man, or was it because the scheme was there and it actually went to Mecole Hardman? or it was man coverage. But while it was man coverage, they also shaded, an extra safety over to Tyreek Hill, which took away part of the field that could have been covered or is now helping out with other guys being more balanced from that standpoint. Because, against man, 54% of the time against man for Buffalo, Mahomes still had 340 yards passing in the game and 2 touchdowns. He had the bad decision in throwing it into the end zone and a jump ball to MVS, and he had the play in which the Bills just got him.
I think the psychology of this is interesting because, you can go through play by play. Sometimes MVS is going to win his man matchup. This is not to say that this is any more of a be-all, end-all chief stopper than Cover 2 was last year. But to see how it's going to be the point that defenses build out from, say we're going to start by challenging you in these man setups. Because if you can't, then now all of a sudden the Chiefs are working on their heels in real time. If they can't overcome that immediately, now the defense is having to adjust. Because, you'll be able to splice this up and say, this play here, Juju beats his guy and you're up 1. Or over here, Tyreek Hill, his biggest play was running through zone coverage. Absolutely. You'll find examples of that. The NFL is too complicated for any one thing to explain the league. But this might explain where defenses start from now on.
Yeah, and to that point, when we talked about the Bills' final play and that man was on the backside and zone was on the side where Mahomes rolled to and thought it was man, in which Johnson then was able to play the zone and come down and intercept that, the man was on Sky Moore. It was man-to-man on Sky Moore, and he won. He was open, but Milano was there to cut off the passing route because Milano was spying, and it was intercepted because that side of the field was actually zone.
Keep an eye on Sky Moore as a solution to this.
I will. I'm going to keep my eye on the sky.
Hi, guys. It's Andrew with Oak Ridge.
The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Even though last night I did suffer my worst fantasy football beat.
Nobody cares.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we'll talk with Todd Leabo coming up at 1 o'clock. Some Fact or Fiction with Todd. He's down at the Women's Big 12 Media Day going on right now with Brett Yormark having his State of the Conference press conference going on. We'll be hanging out down there for the Men's Big 12 Media Day tomorrow, talking to some of the coaches while hearing from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes as they get set for their last game before the bye week. They head to San Francisco. Let's talk some college football now. Braden Gall from Athlon Sports, ESPN Radio, and 440 Podcast Network joining us here in the Zone. Braden, welcome in, sir. How are you?
Doing well, man. How are you?
I am doing just fine. I do want to say thank you. I do want to say thank you, and we appreciate that. One of our drops now moving forward is this.
Nobody cares.
And we play it a lot, Braden.
15 times a day. I mean, literally daily.
We play it a lot. If anybody mentions, well, I had this parlay last night.
Nobody cares.
Or,
God.
So I'm watching it and, like, you know, I'm going up against Russell Wilson in fantasy football.
Nobody cares.
Okay.
Basically, thanks. Braden, that audio has become like a squirt bottle for a misbehaving cat, but the misbehaving cat is Jason.
That's right.
Beards has the bottle.
Man, I love that.
Yes.
I love that. You got to keep them accountable, man. You got to hold them accountable.
Thank you for helping out with the show, not only from 12 to 12:20 when we talk to you on Tuesdays during the football season, but now forever, in perpetuity moving forward. So over the summer, whatever it might be, we'll just have this ready to go.
Nobody cares.
So
12:20, that's cute. I like that.
Yeah, that was weirdly specific and wrong.
I thought that was. I said, you know what number am I going to go with? I'll go with 12:20. It is cute, isn't it?
That's one question for you, man. What are you talking about?
Son of a gun. All right.
You're giving Beards a lot
Good
to
to be
work
here,
with,
though.
Braden.
Good to be
Appreciate
here.
it.
No, I appreciate you coming on the show. All right, Tennessee needs help raising money for goalposts. How's that going over there in that state or the Commonwealth?
Well, like the only thing I can complain about, I guess, as an alumni, married to an alumni, into an alumni family, after 15 years of heartache, and I think I don't remember who else did this. I want to say I'm drawing a total blank on who else did this. I want to say maybe Ole Miss did this when they beat Alabama, that they were asking for money. They're not the first athletic department to do that, but it is sort of comical to me that you are, Danny White, the athletic director, is the head of a $150 million business with a $150 million budget, and you're asking, like, the people who sit in double Z in the 300 level at Neyland Stadium to pay for the goalposts. Like, you know how much money you're going to raise off that one win alone? You know how much money you're going to make off selling memorabilia from just that night? Like, whether it's cigar photos or goalpost photos or stadium rush the field photos. Like, I'm sorry, that's the one thing. Like, I get asked for money. We all get asked for money all the time from our alma maters. But to be asked for money after that, like that part rubs me the wrong way. Everything else is all gravy in Big Orange Nation right now.
Yeah, I bet. And they find a way to win. The knuckleball goes through the uprights after Alabama misses their field goal. And it was like that field goal misses for Alabama. And I'm watching the game with a couple of friends, and it's like, all right, it's going into overtime. And good on Tennessee, good on Heupel, that it wasn't let's just settle for overtime. It was, no, let's go win the damn game.
Well, and I think that's what makes the game itself so just wonderful to enjoy. Like, in general, to me, like, we all have different tastes, right? Like, some of us like pitchers duels that are 2-1. Some of us like high scoring home run fest. Some of us like defensive football, offensive football, hockey games, basketball games, 3-point shooting contests. We all sort of have our own taste. I don't really care about high or low scoring if it's extremely well played. Like, I'm fine with 9-6 if it's extraordinarily well played, high level talent on defense, just impossible to break through, even though the offense is also very talented. Like, what made this game so great, not just Goliath and Nick Saban, the greatest of all time, 15 years of catharsis and frustration and anxiety and nausea on one side, and 15 years wandering the desert and being irrelevant and being told that you'll never win again, and going through all the things that, some of which were self-inflicted by Tennessee fans and Tennessee administration. A lot of it was self-inflicted. But then to have two quarterbacks play as perfect a game as you could ever see between two just extremely talented offense. Like, there was no flukiness about this. It wasn't a fluke that Alabama lost. It wasn't a fluke that Tennessee won. It was just exceptional football. And they're like, even the officials, like, I don't think the officials had a real major impact on the game. I mean, Alabama fans could complain that Bryce Young was clearly hitting the face mask, and that could have been a targeting foul. There's a couple other small ones, but by and large, one for Tennessee that extended the drive to tie the game. Like, you could make a couple of nitpicky complaints about that game, but, like, you really can't. The atmosphere, the environment, the location, the two top 10 teams, like, there's just nothing to complain about with that game, and it's why we love college football. And we just don't get very many of them that are that exceptional and extraordinary. So I think, does Tennessee have a chance to make the playoff? Can they beat Georgia? Will Alabama lose again? Like, those are questions for another time. Maybe next week, maybe the week after, maybe a month from now, maybe for the playoff committee to answer. But for the short term, I think even the objective observer can say, and clearly the ratings bear this out, because people tune in to watch Bama and people tune in to hate Bama, and that's clearly what Bama has done to college football. But that's as good as it gets. Like, that is as perfectly played a game and as entertaining a game as you could possibly imagine. And again, the text messages and the photos I got on Saturday night,
I bet.
From friends and family and everything, like, just such a cathartic moment for a fan base that's desperately wanted something like this for almost 2 decades.
So the common reaction after a game like that, and a team that's sitting at 6-0 and beats an Alabama and wins that game, and is as cathartic as you talk about, is, okay, is this team for real? Are they a legit 6-0 team? Which, I don't know, define that. They win in overtime against Pittsburgh. The Florida final score looks closer than what that game really felt like. But then beating Alabama, like, is this a team that is one of the top 5 teams in America?
I mean, Tennessee fans don't want to hear this. All those text messages I got, if I sent back my rankings, I think I'd be muted and disowned, because I still think, like, if you ask me right now, neutral field, Bama, Tennessee, straight up, who are you putting every penny you own on? I'm putting it on Alabama, but based on the circumstances. Now, I still think Tennessee is deserving of being number 3 or number 4 or number 2 or number 1 or number 5. It's all good. Like, again, rankings don't matter until the end of the season after every game has been played. But if you're asking me about resume and path and difficulty and efficiency metrics on both sides of the ball, all things that we sort of try to incorporate when we rank teams, at least I do, especially context and nuance, how a game is played, where it's played, who's playing, who's injured, who's not. Like, these are all things the committee uses, not anything that Twitter uses. But, like, Tennessee's path to this point, it's not even – like, it's hard to find a better resume than Tennessee. Yeah. No one has a better win probably than Tennessee. They also have a dominating win over LSU on the road. Yeah. They beat Florida. Okay, not a great win, but there's a lot of, history there. A road win against a Pitt team that, again, is not great, but is still a quality non-conference opponent. And then they've dominated sort of their quote-unquote cupcakes. So, Alabama may have a harder strength of schedule than Tennessee, but any team in the top 15, I don't think anyone's got a better resume than Tennessee. So you could, in theory, make them the number 1 team. Now, if you're being super analytical and thoughtful about where the season plays out, the defensive side of the ball for Tennessee is still a question. They are not as balanced as Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, Michigan, and even Alabama to some degree from a defensive metric standpoint. They did an excellent job against Alabama, strangely enough to say, when they've given up 49 points. But Bryce Young had to be spectacular. Like, the plays Bryce Young – like, Hendon Hooker was the best performance I've seen a Tennessee football player put forth since probably Peyton Manning or Jamal Lewis or, Albert Hainsworth. I don't know. It was one of the greatest showings I've ever seen in a Tennessee uniform, and he was the second best quarterback on the field that night, because Bryce Young did things that human beings just don't do. He is one of one in college football, and if Tennessee's defense plays anybody else, Stetson Bennett, maybe not C.J. Stroud, but Stetson Bennett or J.J. McCarthy or anybody else in college football, even Caleb Williams can't do the things that Bryce Young did that night. So I think the major question is, you beat Kentucky, you beat South Carolina, you beat Missouri, you handle your business, and they lose close to Georgia. Is that good enough to get them into the playoff? Are they good enough on defense to do that? And I think the answer is maybe yes. but that also depends on what happens around the country.
So, Braden Gall is our guest. One more on Tennessee specifically, and then want to move on to some other points. But it's been talked a little bit around here about Josh Heupel because Venables is struggling, and you've got a guy that is won a national title there at Oklahoma, and he was an offensive coordinator for Missouri, and I remember at times being. The conversation being like, he's the issue. He's the problem. Josh Heupel, he's got to go. And he has gone. And then he goes to Tennessee, and he's got an offense that puts, half 100 on Alabama. So is he the next coaching star? Is this, just starting to for Heupel to sort of announce that he's going to be one of those stud coaches? Is this just an awesome start to the season, and he's, a fine coach? It's probably hard to define right now, but I do wonder, what the idea from your standpoint is of Josh Heupel as a coach moving forward. Would he be a guy that Oklahoma might go, all right, it's not working with Venables, back up the Brinks truck and let's go and get Heupel because they're moving to the SEC?
It's such a complicated question because, his offenses at Missouri were exceptional. Drew Lock broke records. There also is a lot of coaching people, and I've talked to a lot of coaches that'll say, man, it's a really easy offense to sort of anticipate and prepare for, and if you've got better players, you can do it. Well, it doesn't, that is all null and void if you've got a player who can operate the offense like Hendon Hooker is operating. So I do think some of this is perfect storm. You've got a guy in Hendon Hooker that is just extraordinary, who understands the system and the offense and has an athletic ability packaged with accuracy and an understanding of the game that you just don't get very often. Again, he's one of the 3 or 4 5 best quarterbacks in America, and he's operating the system now as a full offseason as the starter. I think Oklahoma, wasn't Venables run out of town too? After the, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I thought who was the defensive coordinator for Oklahoma when I feel like they got maybe I'm thinking of Clemson's defensive coordinator after putting up giving up 70 to West Virginia in an Orange Bowl or something. But long story short, Heupel was taking over, and part of this conversation is Jeremy Pruitt. Heupel was taking over a program that was run by an adolescent child and an unqualified athletic director. So anything would be better than that, and you were going to see a big response to that. Josh Heupel is just a regular dude, and I think Tennessee people, fans, players have craved just sort of a normalcy that they haven't had since Philip Fulmer was there in the mid-aughts, and I think that's a big part of this, that it's just resonated. His communication style has resonated. Some of this is the questions around his ability to recruit have been answered by NIL, not himself. And so I think that's a part of this as well. So you package it kind of all together into this perfect storm of, you beat Bama, you beat Florida, you get those 2 monkeys off your back, you beat LSU on the road, you've got this great start, you're legitimately a top 5 team. But at the same time, is it sustainable? Can you beat Georgia? Can you beat Alabama next year? Can you beat Georgia next year? There's still, can you win an SEC East and SEC and national championship? Right now, there's no answer to those questions. But Tennessee fans don't care because you're going to ride the wave because right now it's all house money. There's nobody expected this. They didn't come into the season with massive expectations. I think even the most ardent Tennessee fan would say, man, 10-2 would have been a heck of a year this year. That would be an extraordinary upside season. And, most people, myself included, thought 8-4, 9-3, we'll see progress. Hendon Hooker's really good. They're going to lose a couple games they're not supposed to. Bama and Georgia are tough. 9-3 would be a huge step forward for this program. What are they going to do the following year? That's sort of, I think, the thing that has changed for me is upside. Do they have more upside than I anticipated? And because all those concerns you have about Josh Heupel, whether they were at Oklahoma or Missouri or UCF, in terms of recruiting, for example, where they went from 1st to 4th to 7th in the American Athletic Conference in recruiting at a place where you should be first every year. I mean, it seems like a lot of those questions have been answered. Again, in the short term, we don't know what it looks like in the long term. I mean, Jimbo Fisher has recruited at an exceptional level. They almost make the playoff 2 years ago, and they have gone backwards since then. So, again, they were one-loss team that only lost to, an epically, historically great Bama team in 2020 and finished 5th in the playoff rankings, 1 spot from making the playoff. That's how good A&M was 2 years ago. People forget that. And they've gone nowhere but backwards. So I'm not suggesting that's going to happen with Josh Heupel, but sustainability is a huge thing that makes Nick Saban great, and apparently Kirby Smart, to some degree Dabo Swinney, Urban Meyer, the guys that are great. we don't know the answer to that,
Yeah.
and only time can give us the answer to that, and that's not a good answer for Sports Talk Radio, but it's the truth about Josh Heupel.
No, I mean the answer could have been no. This guy's there's something special about him. Like people around college football say this guy's got all the intangibles, and look at the offense. Could it be that? And the answer, more than likely is we'll see. Because define a coach that's going to have success, and there's probably a lot of different elements that went into that.
Let me ask you a question real fast,
yeah.
because I want to know what people thought about him and his skill set, his talent to communicate and build relationships as a coordinator. Because, like, the sign of a great coach is the ability to evolve and develop yourself. And if Josh Heupel has always sort of had this innate ability to be an everyman's man and communicate with players, because that's the thing that stood out to me when I went to media days in Atlanta. I set about for a couple of different coaches, Sam Pittman at Arkansas and Josh Heupel, those two in particular. I wanted to know why it worked so quickly. Lance Leipold at Kansas is another one. Chris Kleiman, why do these guys? Why does it work? The Sonny Dykes thing in TCU is even crazier because it's like the entire it's just Gary Patterson's program.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one dude has changed, which is very different than all these other places. Like Lincoln Riley has changed everything at USC. Josh Heupel has changed everything through NCAA sanctions at Tennessee. It's easy to understand and see why why the changes mattered.
Yeah.
I want to know if Josh Heupel is different today as a coach than he was 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. Like what has changed in him?
Mm-hmm.
Because Cedric Tillman told me at media, I said, why is this working? And Cedric Tillman said, he sits down with players for 10, 15 minutes, personally with one player, and has a one-on-one conversation with every player on his roster over the course of a week or two. And I'm like, isn't that normal? And he's like, no. If more coaches did that, they'd be winning more. Specifically, that's the quote from Cedric Tillman to me, and who, by the way, the best receiver on the team, didn't play in the win against Alabama. So I'd like to know if he's changed. That's my question about Josh Heupel. Has he learned and evolved? And is that what's working, or is there something else there?
Yeah.
Just Hendon Hooker being great, or NIL, or whatever.
Yeah, I wish I knew. I was, I wasn't around and near the Missouri program at that time. I was covering Bobby Petrino and offensive coordinator for Kentucky, Neil Brown.
So great communicator.
That's exactly right. You want to talk about a guy who sat down and talked with all of his players? It's Bobby Petrino. That's the guy. Definitely worked out.
Post-it note.
Yes, that's right. The fun stories of when Scott Satterfield was hired in Louisville, players going, yeah, we now know where the coach's office is. We never knew where it was before. We weren't allowed on that level. And now it's like, it's weird.
So I'm not going to use the name just to protect the innocent here, because the SID at Louisville for a long, long time. I've known him as well, and it's amazing how different the personality of the SID was from one coach to the next. It's amazing how that works.
No doubt about that. Braden Gall is our guest. Humongous game in the Big 12 going on this weekend. Kansas State, the Wildcats, they travel down to Fort Worth to take on TCU. Both teams 3-0, atop of the conference in the Big 12. TCU with the great comeback against Oklahoma State. That game was going the way that I thought it would go. I thought Oklahoma State's the best team in the Big 12. They would win that game, and they were leading, they were controlling, and then TCU comes back and they win it in overtime. And so congratulations to them, because it sets up this big matchup with K-State this weekend. We ask about Tennessee and 6-0 and resume and how good of a team they are, and I'm sort of wondering the same thing with TCU in the wins that they have, and surviving KU, coming back against Oklahoma State, and being 3-0, and now going to be tested again against a Kansas State team that's certainly going to be prepared and had the week off. What do you make of this matchup and Kansas State's chances of going down and winning outright against TCU, even though they're getting 3.5 points right now?
Yeah, total toss-up. I wonder how many times Fort Worth can get up for, again, not to be disrespectful to Fort Worth, but it's not Neyland Stadium. It's not even Rice-Eccles Stadium, which is in Utah, which was absurd when Cam Rising scored the 2-point conversion.
Yeah,
I literally have a family member who was in the crowd for both of those games as an alumni, and he sent me photos, and the place looks awesome and rocking and great. It's not the same thing as a Neyland Stadium or Baton Rouge or some of these other places. So how big and how intense does that atmosphere feel? I assume it's going to continue to build on itself, which is cool. Oklahoma State was interesting. Like, they get up to 24 points. They know 10 minutes to go in the second quarter, and like you said, this looks like the most mature, best program in the conference. They look like they're going to, take care of this game and then and go on and get to the Big 12 title game, which they still could do.
Yeah.
Big one with Texas this weekend. But they don't. To me, what I saw was TCU took advantage of the fact that Oklahoma State just didn't have dogs on offense. Like, they don't have those stars around the quarterback. And Spencer Sanders has reverted a little bit the last 2 games to sort of old Spencer Sanders, but you got to give credit to TCU. Like, they score the 2-touchdown drive. They score 2 touchdowns on 2 drives to end the game, tie it, and then they win it in overtime. They do have some dogs. That's the difference. Quentin Johnston is going to play on Sundays. He's a freak. If Deuce Vaughn played for Oklahoma State, I don't think they lose that game. That they need that star. Oklahoma State doesn't have that star. Well, Kansas State does, and so does TCU. And then on top of that, you add in the quarterback play and the efficiency, and you look at Adrian Martinez, and I'm sure I'm about to jinx this with how well he's protected the football, but that is absolutely critical here. Which quarterback takes care of the football? And so you've got this fundamentally sound, discipline-oriented culture defense, eye discipline and foot discipline and hip discipline and all this stuff for the way they want to play defense against this offense that has just been, like you said, that's as good a 3-week run as anyone in the country has had. When I can't believe I'm saying that about beating Kansas, but it's true. Like, you destroy Oklahoma's defense like that, you go up and you score that many points, and you win a game against Kansas, and then you come back on Oklahoma State. That's as good a 3-game stretch as anybody. So I have no idea what to expect. It's all about the discipline on defense and Adrian Martinez protecting the football. If they do those 2 things, then I'm curious if TCU can continue to get up every week in these challenging type of moments, because it takes a lot of energy. And Kansas State's got a little bit of rest here. The 1-point win was ugly, but it is what it is. Iowa State kind of does that to everybody. They did it to Texas last week. It's probably the best 0-4 team I've ever seen in my life. And so to me, it's about TCU maintaining energy levels with Kansas State having some extra time to approach that offense.
Yeah.
So I actually like Kansas State if you're telling me I get some points in this one. But right now, is anybody betting against TCU? It's hard to argue with what they're accomplishing.
Yeah, and the argument of when the bye week comes, is it a good time? Is it a bad time? I think the great questions to any coach on a bye week, is this a good time for the bye week? And the answer is always, yeah, we get some rest, we get the mental rest. It's never, no, this sucks. I would much rather have the bye week in 2 weeks, but, I guess we'll deal with it now and figure it out. But, is this the best time for a bye week for Kansas State? Well, the next 6 games are going to be as crucial and season-defining games as you can get for a team that is sitting 3-0 and has a chance to win the Big 12 or play for the Big 12 championship in front of them. They get a week off, and then they head to TCU. They got Oklahoma State and Texas back-to-back at home. They head to Baylor, head to West Virginia, and then the Sunflower Showdown at the end of the season. So, is it better to be rested up before this final stretch that's so crucial, or would you like a break in the middle of those couple of games, in that final stretch?
Like if Adrian Martinez is doubtful for the Baylor road trip, then you're probably going, I wish we had a bye week, because of an injury. But so it's almost all based on injuries and rest. I do think, and this goes back to our conversation about Alabama, if Texas A&M finishes off Alabama 2 weeks ago, I don't think they lose to Tennessee. And poor Mississippi State this week, because they're coming off a loss, generally Alabama just goes on a warpath after that. So thoughts and prayers for Mississippi State this week, who is, by the way, pretty good and ranked, but no chance this week against Alabama, and Vegas agrees. I think this was the perfect time, because I think playing Iowa State is a very physical task. Generally, you have to exert a lot of energy to beat Iowa State, especially on the road. And I think heading into these 3 games, you don't have to play your absolute best to beat West Virginia on the road. You maybe don't have to play your absolute best to beat Kansas at home. I know that's probably famous last words. I don't know about Baylor. If Chapin's healthy and he's in the game and he's fully there, then you probably have to play pretty damn well to beat Baylor on the road. But if he's not playing, can you go down and play 80% of your game and beat them? Maybe. I don't think you can go 3-0 in the next 3, though, without playing your best football. I know 2 of them are at home, and I know Oklahoma State's, again, we just talked about maybe some of their questions, but every single week in this conference, every single game is winnable and losable. Every game by every team. And if that's the case, I'd much rather have my bye week right smack dab in the middle, coming off 3 tough games, a couple of road games, especially a physical one against Iowa State, and then having to go to TCU, Oklahoma State, and Texas. Those three obviously are the critical ones that are going to define your season. So I think the bye week comes at a good time, but that's just me.
Real quick, KU and then Mizzou. KU travels to Baylor, a big one this weekend. Look, we've already talked about how much we like Lance Leipold and think how good of a coach he is. But it continues to amaze even as it goes along, because I was one, Braden, that said, yeah, Lance Leipold, credit to him in getting this team organized. Jalen Daniels was already on campus, but you recognize, identify, and coach him to a level that he's been a difference maker, and that is so huge for a team. And then he goes out, and then, of course, they go and continue to put points on the board against TCU and score 4 touchdowns in the second half with Bean and put 42 more points on the board against Oklahoma. Like, it not missing a beat with Kansas. Certainly it helps if Jalen Daniels is playing, but it's almost somehow I've become more impressed with Kansas since Jalen Daniels got injured than I was before.
I see where you're going with that. I think he means a whole lot more to that team than this conversation is probably giving him. But I get your point, which is it's still impressive to put your backup quarterback out there against what is right now a top 10 undefeated TCU team and score 4 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that got in at 10.5, love that backdoor, that
right,
really awful backdoor cover by Kansas. The key here is much like Tennessee, but in a different level. They're playing with house money. Kansas is again, they hit the over in week 3, so obviously they're playing with house money. I think if you lose 7 straight, and it's because your star quarterback doesn't play, that's a tougher pill to swallow. That's unlikely, but again, like I just said, Kansas at Texas Tech, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
They can win all 5 of these games, they could lose all 5 of these games, and so ideally, when I'm as an objective observer, I would love to see them get to a bowl game because I think that would be a massive accomplishment as a season. And even though that doesn't necessarily feel all that great if you're a Kansas fan because you felt different when you had a game day in town and you're 5-0 and you got the star quarterback and all this stuff, and it's certainly understandable to say what if. I don't know. Going 6-6 at Kansas in year 2 is there's still some perspective that is needed to appreciate just how incredible that is.
Yeah.
And a lot of the credit, it's Lance Leipold, but it's Jalen Daniels is that good. And maybe they beat TCU. Maybe they don't beat Oklahoma, but maybe they win 2 or 3 more games. Maybe they're an 8-win team if they have Jalen Daniels. And 8-4 is historic at Kansas. Absolutely.
Last one, Mizzou, Vandy. I wouldn't call it a must-win, but I'd call it a can't-lose type game for Eli Drinkwitz and Mizzou. They come off a bye. Should this be an easier game for Mizzou? They're favored by 2 touchdowns against Vandy that just got beat down as expected against Georgia. So easier win for Mizzou, kind of a laugher, or should be.
Man, it's tough. Like, what's the grand total of points the last 3 losses against 3 huge national brands? Like a grand total of 13 points or something like that, or 15 points maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know what the exact number is, but all 1-score games, all close, all where you sort of played well enough. And if you play like that, you'll beat Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's making progress. It's very, very slow, but they're making progress. They've got an interesting quarterback. Clark Lee is sort of slowly but surely turning the ship around, and this is what makes what Lance Leipold and Josh Heupel have accomplished so bad for every other coach in America, because everyone is going to look at Kansas and Tennessee and be like, look, they did it. Why can't you?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the way the world works. So, that's one way of looking at it. And life's not fair, as I would tell my kids. But this is to your point, must not lose situation if you're Eli Drinkwitz. Because, again, you got New Mexico State. You can win the South Carolina game. And if you do that, you sort of hit the Vegas number, on the dot, and you kind of go, all right, how's recruiting? How did we look? And frankly, right now, you should have won the Auburn game. That was gonna. If you get to 5-7 and you look back on your season, you go, we didn't get to a bowl game because we missed a 26-yard field goal. That's gonna be hard to swallow. Yeah. But you played extremely well against Georgia. You played well against Florida on the road. I think you can take some things from that, even if you don't feel good about it.
Yep. We'll see what happens. Braden Gall, Athlon Sports, ESPN Radio, 440 Podcast Network. Braden, as always, very much appreciate the time, sir. And see, just as I said, it's added time like soccer. It's 12:20, but they added 9 minutes in soccer.
Stoppage, baby. stoppage.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
there you go.
stoppage time. And the stoppage time of talking about the, nobody cares thing. That's what happened.
I thought you might get hit by your own nobody cares as you were going through Kansas hitting the over so quickly. But Beards didn't do it to you, which I thought he might.
I thought he might go in reactionary,
Fair.
just do it. So
Listen, all's fair, man. You guys can throw it. I don't know if would anybody be able to tell the difference, like
I have
a
no
drop
idea.
of myself over myself. Like that seems weird, but I deserve it. So.
Can we hear it, Beards?
Nobody cares.
There it is.
See, that sounds just like...
Bring a bad beat next week, Braden.
There we
Just
go.
wherever you lose a nickel, let us know about it.
Hey, you guys, listen to this. I'll set you up for this. Okay, here's how we do it. How about this? I lost in my family's fantasy league to a person who didn't have a defense, a kicker, or a receiver playing. I deserve to be kicked out of that league. Nobody cares. But nobody cares.
Oh, that was great! Wow, that was like a backing track. It was like
awesome.
Listening to McCartney in concert.
Got that in stereo.
Let it be.
Braden, you're the man. Really appreciate the time, sir. Enjoy the football. We'll talk next week, bud.
All right, boys.
All right, there's Braden Gall, ESPN Radio, great stuff. Athlon Sports 440 Podcast Network, Friend Element Podcast, Football Show Podcast, does great work in covering college football and gambling and fantasy as well.
People care about that kind of stuff.
Brings
Jason.
the perspective. There's one thing we know is that everyone cares.
Nobody cares.
Nope. Never mind.
No.
Breaking news. Nobody cares.
Oh, is he still on the
He
phone?
is, actually.
Just waiting. He's just there just to drop a nobody cares. In fact, Beards just will tell him, go.
Nobody cares.
Beards was like DJing over there. It was really a beautiful thing. Drop the beat. Nobody cares.
Is that Dougie Fresh over there on the beatbox? I knew it was. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. Todd Leabo, we'll hang out with him in the 1 o'clock hour, Factor of Fiction as well. We'll talk some more football. We'll also get into a couple of points that we've yet to talk about today. And just looking back a little bit more to the Buffalo game and then moving forward, the 2 interceptions, what happened on those, examining that a little bit with what Buffalo did, with what Patrick Mahomes talked about. And then we haven't got a chance to really weigh in on some of the questions that we talked about with Adam Teicher in the Patrick Mahomes. Does he trust his offensive line? Because that was a happy feet Mahomes, it felt like, in that game against Buffalo. It was a cleaner pocket. I'm still going to leave. I'm still getting out while the getting's good. See what happens there. So we'll talk about that. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling more Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
I've got control of all these knobs over here.
Wow.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, thank you to Braden Gall. We'll talk with Todd Leabo coming up in the 1 o'clock hour, 913-912-4810. 913-912-4810. We haven't got to the texts so far in the show. 913-912-4810. Text says Tennessee for 20 minutes. Tennessee. Was it 20 minutes we talked about? Because I could have swore 12:15 is when we started talking about K-State. Not to mention that we started talking about Tennessee at like 12:07.
People
also
like to complain.
That was the best game of the weekend.
Yeah.
And they're number 3 in the country.
Yeah, it was fun. They tore down the goalpost, and then Tennessee went hat in hand.
Yes.
I mean, look, man.
That's right.
This is just me being again sort of abrasive with the text line.
Don't be abrasive with the text line.
Look, sometimes
that.
not every minute of all 4 hours is going to be about your fantasy football league.
Oh.
I don't know what to tell you. Tennessee beat Alabama. That's fine. It wasn't my highlight of the weekend, but I'm glad that I watched the game. It was interesting. And having Braden Gall on to talk about it. Because Braden, you're going to have to remind me, Jason, Braden's based in
Nashville.
Okay. That's in
Ohio?
It's in America.
It is in America, that's right.
Which little, I can't remember the word, like a little country in the country.
Commonwealth.
Yeah, and I guess it actually wouldn't be a state. I was fishing for the word state, but that time I wasn't going to get it and I wasn't going to earn it.
You weren't going to, you weren't going to get
I don't know, man.
Not for me. You weren't getting state for me. That's a damn Commonwealth.
That
ain't no state.
If the Titans do something super interesting, if the Titans beat Alabama next week, we should also ask Braden about it.
Well,
partially because that'd be a pretty big story, I think.
Braden's fault. His answers, he could have just said, pretty good game, pretty good team. Yeah, we'll see if they're for real, whatever. His fault. Questions were quick. And I think it's interesting, the Josh Heupel part of it, because obviously it's way too quick to talk about Brent Venables and his job, but there are people that are pretty damn unhappy already. Yep. And just sort of a peek ahead, if this continues at Tennessee and Heupel then starts and continues winning next year and Venables continues down this track, then yeah, you would wonder if Oklahoma's going to go, all right, we're now in the SEC and we're going to pay whatever it takes to get that guy, get our alumni national championship winning quarterback back home. We'll see.
I was going to say that someday we'll do a segment that makes everybody happy. And but of course we won't. But we actually might, because I've never heard anyone complain about sad fans, and so that's our only real winner. But I don't even know about this week, Beards. I know that it was a sad time this week on the collection front. We're looking at tomorrow on sad fans, right?
Yeah, so probably tomorrow will be the sad fans.
I just have to imagine
we kind of mentioned it earlier with Teicher, where
situation.
All of the Chiefs fans were like, "Oh, it sucks we lost, but that was a good game. We did our best against a good team," and that's no fun for sad fans.
Be sadder and funnier, fans.
Call for Andy Reid's head.
Come on,
exactly.
Chiefs fans, be meaner.
Have a comment about Carl Cheffers.
But I am working on something else to go with it. There might be a bonus edition from last night's game potentially.
I appreciate that. Yes,
find ways. Tomorrow.
Find ways to do that. By the way, same texter. I like this. It gets the show and understands and plays along with us. Text back in and goes, "My math isn't good." See? All in good fun. All right, let's talk about
Too bad I actually already got on the app and sent a bunch of very mean texts back to that phone number, and now I feel bad.
This text comes in and says, Tennessee for 20 minutes is fine with me every day. Go Vols. Oh, see? There you go. You're a Tennessee fan.
We got our guy.
Got the old Rocky Top there.
Is that Braden's number? Did Braden text the text line instead of us directly?
Text says, I will be very unhappy if you guys ever do a segment that makes everyone happy.
Gosh dang it!
I love that text. That's one of
We're
my favorite
doomed.
texts. That's one of my favorite texts ever.
And I'll tell you what, the texter, I don't think you have anything to worry about.
Yeah, but that is there was so many layers to unfold with that onion. That's on true. that particular text. All right, so let's talk some Chiefs football here, because we've talked way too much Tennessee
today.
Talk
volunteer football!
Talk Chiefs, damn it! Talk
Rocky
Chiefs!
Top!
All right, let's get into X Factor. Still not allowed at Arrowhead Stadium. What's the deal with that? Am I right, everybody?
I'm going to file a motion on his behalf. It's been too long.
Is that why?
The Chiefs didn't lose at home to the Bills with X Factor in attendance. They might have. I can't remember. The timeline of all of that's been a little bit jumbled up for me personally.
By the way, it's just to double back a little bit, because texts are coming in and they're pretty good. A few texts all referencing this, kind of to the point of, You're talking Tennessee means you're not talking about Lance Leipold leaving. So there you go. I like that. Well done, Texter. That was pretty good. All right, so let's. Should we talk some Chiefs?
Let's talk Mizzou football.
All right, very
look,
good.
Eli turning it around.
They do play Tennessee later on this year.
Vandy game's going to be. The spread on that one, I bet will be nice and respectful. But that one won't make you want to gouge your eyes out.
At least it's on the road in Neyland, so it's not a big deal.
At least those goalposts aren't going anywhere that weekend.
Yes. All right. So do we talk Chiefs? What are we doing here?
It's up to you.
I'm not really sure what we end up doing here.
Let's take a break.
All right. Very good. No, I had mentioned at the end of that segment that, we talked with Adam Teicher about is there trust with the offensive line with Patrick Mahomes. It didn't feel like that against the Bills. Now, maybe it's just a general feeling of Mahomes running around. But I remember at the time, and I took some notes at the time, that going back and just noting that it's like, it looked like he left a clean pocket. Looked like he could have stayed in there a little bit more. Looked like there was a read over there to get rid of the ball instead of having to scramble. I don't know. Like passing up a short pass to hit something over the top is trusting your offensive line. Right. Is saying there's going to be enough time for me to throw. Immediately leaving what seems like was forming into a clean pocket that you overreact one way or another leads you to say, all right, there is not trust from his offensive line. It's also something that I just think you're never going to coach out of Patrick Mahomes, nor do I want them to, because some of the more special plays that he makes are, now let me get out in space and have the whole field in front of me. The first touchdown of the game was Mahomes running around. Juju isn't in that position making that play if Mahomes sits in the pocket because that was the play breaking down and then ad-libbing. So I don't know what to make of it. It felt like there was a lack of trust with Mahomes and the offensive line against the Bills.
And, yeah, I mean, look, the second that Mahomes stops with the creativity that he has, we should all stop watching football because all that's good in this world has left our eyes.
Yeah, no thank you.
But there is a difference between Mahomes being a willing escape artist and creator and a guy that is able to take the most of what's around him whenever the pocket gives him good enough. When the pocket's great, Mahomes is great. When the pocket's a nightmare, Mahomes is great. When the pocket is questionable, that's where Mahomes follows suit.
That's a really interesting way of presenting it because I think that's illuminating.
I think also I'll say I'm basically the unpaid PR director of Seth Kaiser's newsletter, so mnchiefsfan.substack.com. He put out a quick film review on a few things this morning, and he does a very good job of highlighting some of the plays that are just burned into my mind now. Whenever Mahomes and the Chiefs are backed up against their own end zone, Andrew Wiley gets bull rushed, but Andrew Wiley doesn't get pancaked. He's still between Gregory Rousseau and Patrick Mahomes, and Mahomes, I think, hearing Von Miller and Orlando Brown behind him, oversteps up into Andrew Wiley's backside. Von Miller gets washed around through the end zone. Orlando Brown wins this rep if Mahomes just scoots up a half inch and stays more or less centered in the pocket. That's easier said than done. There's a lot happening there. It's a lot to navigate. Later in the game, Mahomes navigated some pockets incredibly on that drive that ended in the McCole Hardman touchdown. As is the case
including the McCole Hardman touchdown.
Yes. As is the case with everything from this game, a criticism in a couple of plays is not offset, nor is it highlighted by effusive praise on a few others. Mahomes had some remarkable moments, and also a few times that when they're going through the film right now, I already have yesterday, and I'm sure they'll keep going through it as they're preparing for the Niners. Mahomes is going to look at his pocket movement a couple of these times, say, oh man, I actually, not only did I not take what was there, I put my linemen in worse positions. Because if your only prayer for Von Miller is to run him around the back of the play and then you drift backwards, well, now you've made Orlando Brown Jr.'s life a lot more difficult. When you step into Andrew Wiley as he is hanging on for dear life as a blocking sled with hands, he is still able to create that little bit of a partition between you and the incoming guy coming for your head. I think you can look at this game and see something disconcerting in the trust issues of Mahomes and the offensive line because this is year 2 of this group.
Right, yeah.
This is no longer trust issues because he hasn't figured out how Orlando Brown works yet. This is trust issues, I think, in large part because the Chiefs' offensive line has earned them this year. That's concerning because they're going to have to win that trust back, and they're going to have to do it by playing better, which we will see if they're able to do.
We'll take a timeout. More Zone next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
So check your bags. Make sure you've declared your sausage. That's my lesson of the week.
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. You alerted me to this, that earlier this hour, Tom Pelissero.
Yeah, I'll just thank you, Beards.
I appreciate it, Beards. Yep.
Andrew Siciliano tweets out that Tom Pelissero would report on NFL Now on NFL Network that quote that Russell Wilson is getting an MRI on his hamstring today, could be a quote fairly significant unquote injury. I'm pretty sure I watched the whole game on Thursday.
Yeah.
Did he get carted off in overtime and I missed it, or?
No, they were about to get the ball back, and he was standing on the sideline getting ready to come out there before the punt was muffed. Before the putt was muffed. Before the punt was muffed, he was standing right there getting ready to go out there and play. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that he did run more late in the fourth quarter.
Sure.
He did keep the ball on those zone read type plays. I don't know if that played an impact in it, but he also has the lat injury.
Yeah,
he's still dealing with.
For a little bit, hey, it looked like things were all fine and dandy, and then the rest of the game happened last night, and
10-0. I was feeling good about Broncos beating the Chargers last night. Not feeling good from anything other than from the Chiefs' perspective in the AFC West, and saying, boy, gives you a full game and a half lead on the Chargers if the Chiefs are 4-2 and the Chargers are 3-3. Instead, they're both 4-2 now, and Chiefs have the tiebreaker. Boy, there are some big issues going on in Denver, man.
I mean...
Did you see Jeff Schwartz this morning?
Oh, no.
So Jeff Schwartz tweeted out where one of the plays where Russell Wilson just got sacked immediately, and it was somebody just breaking free in the line of scrimmage. And he was like, yeah, sometimes it's not on the offensive line. And he talks about there were 5 defensive linemen, and he's like, this isn't shotgun. You've got your 5 principals. These 5, the Chargers have spread out on the defensive line, so it makes it that the offensive linemen are taking each defensive lineman there. They are showing 2 blitzers. You've got a running back. The running back's going to take this guy right here, which is who Russell Wilson points to, which means that if 49 comes, he's free. Russell Wilson has to know that the hot route, get rid of it. Instead, Russell Wilson takes the snap, 49 comes free, and then he just tries to, do something and then gets sacked immediately. He's like, that's bad.
Broncos
from
country.
Russ.
Let's slide.
What QC Kinetics is doing for people here is...
You're in the zone.
Let's start with sports. Do you guys still have the 6 TD question?
We do have that one. That is Tua Tagovailoa had a big day on Sunday in the comeback win.
With Jason Anderson.
Tua Tagovailoa
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Beards. Update with the San Francisco 49ers. Kyle Shanahan says that Trent Williams, quote, has a chance to play. Says that Charvarius Ward is day-to-day, and Hufanga is in concussion protocol.
I kind of hope Charvarius Ward plays. I just think that might be kind of fun, just to see. I don't know. Does Mahomes think he has a way of getting him somehow? Whatever. I have absolutely no ill will towards Charvarius Ward at all.
Me either.
He was tremendous here as a player. Seemed like a real nice dude. I'd kind of like to see that little reunion kind of matchup. Rest of those guys, take an extra week. Don't rush your way back.
Absolutely.
Trent Williams and Nick Bosa, too valuable to risk. Go ahead and ice up one more week.
Hufanga, Trent Williams, Bosa, take some time out, man.
That's right.
That's right. This is not the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Because if it were, Emmanuel Sanders would be overthrown.
Kittle's probably, feeling a little banged up too.
No, he would not. That doesn't happen. No,
sorry, George Kittle?
Yes.
Maybe dealing with some injury things? Come on, Beards, be realistic.
That's not happening. One of his best abilities is availability. That's what I've always said about George Kittle. Availability, his best ability.
I love George Kittle too much to follow too far down the George Kittle bit. I can't help it. I love tight ends.
I know.
You heard me. You heard me. You heard what I said.
Yeah. By the way, quick sidebar.
George Kittle do it without a functioning pancreas, though. Am I right?
Yeah.
Mark Andrews hive.
Anybody else think that Kelsey was going to have to leave the game after the attempted touchdown early on when he had the one-on-one and he dropped the ball on the back shoulder in the end zone?
Yeah.
And his head slams against the ground.
Yes.
And he looked down and it looked like he was pretty woozy, and then he got up and there was a small little stumble, but then he ran off and he was off for a play and then he came back on. I couldn't believe the eye in the sky didn't say he needs to be checked out, because that looked like a pretty hard slam of his head, and it looked like he was a little woozy after that.
By the way, Lil Woozy, one of my favorite rappers.
That's right.
I'm wondering if we're thinking about the same play. We have to be. I never noticed his head hitting the ground, but I think that was the play. No, it was, because I was worried about his shoulder.
It was in the end zone.
I was worried about it, because that was his 1/11th of the blame comes from that play. Travis Kelce's been tremendous, except for that was probably a touchdown that he expects to make. When I saw him pop up from that, my immediate thought was, don't be a shoulder, don't be an AC joint or a collarbone or whatever. I didn't ever even consider his head hitting the ground.
Yeah, it slammed pretty hard.
Because
I saw him looking down. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, because the last thing you need is someone who, unfortunately for him, he's had some issues with concussions, and he talked about it, and he hasn't had it in a while.
Right.
So he talked about it on his podcast about the Tennessee game where he didn't remember. He stayed in and played the final drive or whatever, the first half, but he goes into halftime at the locker room and didn't remember anything that just took place, didn't return to the game, and he talked about another one as well. So that's obviously concerning in football right now. I'm like, oh no, I don't want to have to deal with that. And obviously missing the rest of the game had been pretty crucial, because that's somebody who is a difference maker for the Chiefs in that one. But
what year? Do you remember which year that was? It was 2017 season, 2018. Oh, God, yeah, it was. Okay. I don't want to ruin everybody's day, but yeah, I just was thinking. You made me think about that game again, and it just got so sad.
My apologies, sir. My bad.
Let's see how this gets. There
was forward progress, though, right?
Oh, God. How did that game have two of the worst things to ever happen on a gridiron?
In his defense, his forward progress was stopped. He was being driven backwards by the sacking lineman.
I believe Derek Johnson nearly beheaded him. And then I was just curious. I hadn't looked at the game log on this one for a while. I just couldn't remember how this one was listed here. 3rd and goal from the KC 6. That's listed as Marcus Mariota, 6-yard pass from Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
Ryan Suckup kick. They even took Ryan Suckup for this game, man.
I believe Darrelle Revis was the one that knocked that ball back.
Boy, I think you're right. I think that is correct. It was not listed there, but that feels very. I don't want to watch it again.
For radio, this
just
works.
Tell us,
I'm just saying, like,
I don't want to look at it.
He played.
No, I know. I think this. I think you're right. I think it was. Oh, this is the Kelsey clip. Sorry, I thought you were gonna make me watch Marcus Mariota.
No,
throw a touchdown to himself.
No, what I'm saying is, like, people are looking at the shoulder.
He really,
I saw his head right there.
That wasn't a drop necessarily from Kelsey. That was a great defensive play there as well. That is worth noting.
It wasn't bad.
But you're right.
I'm looking at, like, then he's staring at the ground, and he eventually goes over to the sideline. This is the view that is the best one right there, and then he's just and almost limp.
I was worried about that left shoulder coming up because I think when he ran off, I think he was favoring that arm a little bit, right?
It looked like it, and I've always wondered this. If you're a player, and obviously if you're a little woozy, and you're signing a record deal, with a great label, if you're a little woozy, if at the same time you would be able to fully process, like, okay, do I want to leave the game? Oh, I'm laying here. I'm going to hold my arm. And then as I lay here and kind of get my bearings a little bit, so I'm not going to stumble when I get up, I'm just going to hold my arm, and they're going to come out and look at me, and we're going to look at my elbow, and I'm going to flex it a few times, and I'm going to try to move my AC joint in my shoulder, and then I'm going to get up and walk off. But again, you've been hit in the head, and your body's kind of laying there. Are you then of the mind of like, oh, now I'm thinking clearly. Now let me do these things that I can put on my acting.
Yes, and I am back to show you all how healthy I am.
Acting. Here I am. I've always wondered that if there are players that might do that when there's sort of a collision and you see him laying there and it's like, okay, he's trying to get the cobwebs out, as we used to say. I don't know. But that was a total aside, sort of sidebar that we never talked about yesterday or got into. Like, I do wonder if there was a little bit of a, okay. Doesn't mean it's a concussion. It's just okay, that one got me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me run. Because he didn't lay there.
Right.
And he got up and ran off the field. Still could have been that, right? Could have been just, hey, hit his head. Those things happen. But man, it would have been a hell of a play. And I don't put
that ball was great, by the way.
It was an awesome throw. It was good defense. It was a tough turning around back shoulder for Travis Kelce. He couldn't get his hands up there to catch it with his hands, so it was sort of between the arm and the shoulder pad, and then trying to then land to get both feet down. It would have been a really difficult play. Can Travis Kelce make that play? Sure. But it's not a play that you go, boy, you got to make that if you're Travis Kelce. I mean, come on, man, you can't drop that one. Like, that's not. If the ball doesn't
get punched out or whatever, then yeah, sure. If the defender is holding on to Kelce instead of having his hand in between where the ball is at, then you go, hey, look, you gotta catch that pass if it's just your two hands. It was a good play by the DB though.
The Colts game, you got to catch the pass, Kelce, and he said so as well, that he was already turning to look at his feet at the in the goal line or in the back of the end zone. That as the ball was getting near his hands, he already started to turn his head to see if he can get both feet in bounds, and the ball goes through his hands. That was a tough play. They also had plenty of other opportunities on that drive to be able to score, like the MVS touchdown.
Right.
And on first down, that ended up being Mahomes throwing the ball away or just throwing it short because he had some pressure, that if he just simply gets to the end of his drop, Kelce's at the 5-yard line. Kelce's at the 5. The nearest defender's at the goal line. It's first and goal from the 9. Just throw Kelce the ball, let him turn and get to the 2, and now it's second and goal from the 2. But it was let me let other things develop, and there's somebody in my face. Now I just got to throw it almost to the ground in front of Kelce. So, yeah, there are a lot of things along the way that could have happened. What I think is if a play here or there was different, the Chiefs would have won. That's what I think. I don't care what anybody else has said about this game.
Well, look, whenever you go up against a great team, you can't miss your chances. And speaking of that, I'm interested in what Commissioner Brett Yormark had to say today at Big 12 Media Day.
What did he say?
Hey, guys.
Hi, Todd Leabo.
You're not Commissioner Brett Yormark.
Where's Commissioner Brett Yormark? You said you're going to drive him back here for us today.
I did pretty well. I think Seren would have been proud of me. I drove pretty quickly.
Yeah, you made good time.
I really had to pee. I've been here for like 6 minutes.
Have you peed since you got here?
Okay. There was no way I was going to walk in here.
Well, that's a relief.
Yeah, it was a big relief. I'll set the stage for you. Tomorrow you'll be down there.
Yep.
They've been doing Big 12 basketball media days at formerly known as Sprint Center, T-Mobile Center, for about, I think, maybe 9-10 years now. It's been a while. It's a great setup. It's fun. They kicked the thing off today. Today is Women's Basketball Media Days. They kicked it off with Commissioner Yormark, and he's at the podium, and there's no podium. It's 2 chairs. And he's up at this thing, and he's getting interviewed by a lady from the Big 12. And I was like, there's no questions? What is this? It was weird. And then there was a off-the-deal scrum afterwards. But I was just like...
Okay. I thought it was going to be like here's the state of the
right.
State of the Union. Here's the commissioner gets up there, and then middle row,
right,
third from the left, Todd.
It was interesting. He came around and shook everybody's hand before he went up on the thing. Introduced himself. He said, "I'm Brett." Okay, great. All right, it's great.
Todd.
So he's got that kind of.
It would have been worse if he would have rocked and said, "Hi, I'm Commissioner Yormark."
He didn't call him that. He just said, "I'm Brett."
I'm Brett. Seems like a good start.
And so then he goes up and he sits in these comfortable chairs, and they talk for a while. And I was looking around. I was like, I don't see the people with the microphones. And it was over, and Aaron Ladd's there. I said, "We got no questions?" And he goes, "You didn't see that coming?" I said, "Ah." Anyway, so then we went over to the side and asked some questions. Here's what I'll tell you: the quick recap of the state. A lot of buzzwords again.
Oh, right.
Love the buzzwords, on brand and whatever. They've hired some, a PR firm from Brooklyn to work on the brand, whatever. Mm-hmm. They want to go nationally. This doesn't matter to anyone except for me and some other people. The Big 12 tournament, they're moving the media out from where they are.
What?
They're going somewhere else, and they're selling those to fancy people.
What?
He's bringing
Why would
the
they
NBA
do
here.
that? That's weird that teams and...
Now, for our listeners out there who want to set that close,
that's right.
You're going to have a chance.
This is a great news for our well-endowed listeners.
That's right.
You heard me.
It's not great news for me.
And not great news
because
news
there's
for
nowhere
you.
to sit. I mean, they'll put us up somewhere in probably some seating. It's not that big a deal. I am not that media guy who needs to be sitting somewhere.
I would have enjoyed it, and really what I just thought of is I actually was credentialed to do that exactly one time. And then the tournament got canceled.
And then the world got canceled.
The whole world got canceled.
We were down there that morning. They shut her down. Nice job, Brisco.
I have that credential as an artifact of a time that never came.
You were in the building.
I was.
You were there.
You're not Mike Lupica when it comes to seats?
No, I don't care. I realize we're privileged to get to do what we do, and I don't care. But so look forward to that. I think this year they're going to be selling some fancy seats.
Yeah, they should.
At Big 12.
They should. He went on a ill-advised Twitter rant at one of the Final Fours a few years ago about how long I've been doing this and the fact that I don't get a courtside seat and this, and I've got to sit with the media overflow, and just it goes on this Twitter rant like,
sorry, Mike.
Read the room, man. Nobody cares.
They don't print your papers anymore.
Nobody cares at all about you not getting a courtside seat and you having to sit behind the basket.
One thing he said at the scrum, this is the podium, not podium.
On the stage?
On the stage.
On the stage,
The dais.
The dais. I love the word dais.
He did say they're not going backwards in revenue. He said there were people who said when Oklahoma and Texas leave, we're not. You go backwards. He said we're not going backwards. We're going forward. Okay, there you go. Okay. So he's going forward. And now the question the lady asked, which I think they rehearsed this, I don't know, was something about how do you keep up with the Big Ten and the SEC? And he said we're not going backwards. He didn't say we're going to keep up, but he said we're not going backwards.
We're not going backwards.
That's something to differentiate there. Well, I'll play something here where they talk about how they expect Oklahoma and Texas to be here for a couple of years. All right?
Okay.
So let's play that now, and then we'll talk about the ramifications of what that means. But he was talking here about he went on a little tour of he has not yet been to Oklahoma and Texas, but went on a tour of the campuses and met some people, and he likes what he's heard.
Just the passion, the commitment, for college sports that has unfolded, not only just during my listening and learning tour, but when I visited the schools, for the recent football games. It's been incredible. And I didn't grow up in that area. I didn't have a lot of exposure to it. So for me, it's been all new, but I'm very energized by it. In fact, I'm more energized today than when I took the job, because I see the possibilities and the opportunities.
Through all your meetings with the groups, you sense a sense of unity? You've got 4 new coming in, 2 going out. Do you feel like the decision makers are unified moving forward?
The alignment is fantastic. And in fact, I witnessed that a bit when I was going through the interview process last June. And then a couple of weeks ago, we hosted our first in-person board meeting since I've been the commissioner. And the alignment, the like-mindedness, the fact that we share the same mission and vision is great. And that includes, the 4 new member institutions that are coming in July, which we're extremely excited about.
On that initial tour, you didn't have OU in Texas, but you had the meetings last week. And as you're making decisions for the next couple of years, how do you balance them still being around, possibly through 2025, but knowing you've got 4 new members?
They're going to be here through 25. They've committed themselves in advance of me getting here, and they've reiterated that commitment. So they'll be here through the duration. And my relationship with both Texas and Oklahoma is very, very strong. And they are full members, and we're looking forward to working with them.
There's been plenty of reports that Oklahoma and Texas were trying to negotiate to get out.
My conversations with Oklahoma and Texas have always been about being great members until they leave, which is in 25, and the experience has been very positive so far.
So look for them to be gone next week. No, that's the face everyone's putting on this thing. But you keep hearing reporting that there's negotiations happening. Yeah. But they're saying they're going to be here. Now, when I say through 25, that's summer. That's not the football season of 25. That's through the basketball
season of 2025 tournament.
So what they've got there is next July, 4 new people are coming to the party. Mm-hmm. So they got to get a football schedule out. They said they're going to do that in November or December. It's going to be a 2-year football schedule because they expect to have 2 years with 14 in the Big 12, not 10 in the Big 12. And there will be 9 league games, and everyone's going to get to play everybody once, right? So they're going to keep their rivalry games around. So we'll get that schedule sometime soon. Basketball, they're not going to expand that to. That would be 26 league games. They're going to keep it at 18, and you'll get to at least play everybody once.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a full round robin. You play everybody, and you got some rotating.
Yeah, it's like
opponents.
The SEC is now, where you'll miss.
They're specifically doing that on like rivalry double downs, right? Like that. Isn't that? I think I saw that a couple weeks ago, but
they're trying to keep those rivalries. Some of these people have been rivals for almost decade. I don't know who West Virginia's rival.
Almost decade.
Rival is here.
But it would be nice for KU and K-State to go home and home every year.
They'll be fine. They're not messing with. They won't mess with anyone who's been in the Big 8.
Right.
They're going to play their people. And Oklahoma and Texas will play because they're not getting rid of that. But maybe someone won't play Oklahoma or Texas. Sure. Maybe I could see them saying, "Hey BYU, you get Texas at your place." So you can go sell a bunch of tickets and make Texas go on the road all the way out there. You know what I mean?
You're not taking a game in Manhattan or Lawrence away from those 2 teams against each other so that Cincinnati can play in Allen Fieldhouse.
Right. Yeah. So unless they want Cincinnati and Allen Fieldhouse more than they want one of the others.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you're not going to take away a home and home with KU State. Playing twice in college basketball
for the sake of Cincinnati.
So that Cincinnati can go to Allen Fieldhouse.
No, because they'll have maybe a decade of doing that eventually. Sure. I don't know, as long as this lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever.
I mentioned
November rain.
I mentioned that specifically just because it feels like every other conversation we've had about college sports for the last 5 years has been bleep your rivalries, bleep your games you look forward to. And it's nice that at least within one little conference they're trying to keep some of that growing.
They'll keep that part working, and I do think they will try to make it uncomfortable for their great partners, Oklahoma and Texas.
That's right. Sounds like
it. And they'll send them somewhere if they have to. And they'll try to, because listen, it's a big deal to have Texas come to your campus still. I mean, that's why they want them in the SEC or Oklahoma. So if they want them, make them go out to BYU so they get one chance to have them out there, they'll do that.
Yeah.
We'll see how they end up doing those schedules. So I think the newcomers will get that. I could see them making Texas go to Houston's campus, something like that.
I know that, which would be great, Texas playing at Cincinnati.
They may just have Texas and Oklahoma could have like 9 road games. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, 8 in their neutral site game.
Yeah.
That they get against each other.
I wouldn't expect the commissioner to say anything other than the alignment is fantastic and everything's good. Also, everybody else can acknowledge that the alignment is as fantastic as options by the teams that are remaining. So, I mean, for the time being, it's fantastic, and everybody's on the same page as long as there are no exit ramps and any doors opening up elsewhere. And I don't know if that's going to be the case, but Oklahoma and Texas
if
through
Oklahoma
25.
and Texas stay, then that you need to credit, the group, including Bob Bowlesby.
Was it Bob Bowlesby?
Well, Bob Berta is the PR guy.
Yeah.
You got to credit them for making a grant of rights that stuck.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't last forever, but if it makes it all the way to the end and they don't buy themselves out and they get all this money from, because they're going to get more money over these 2 years. Now they're in the process now of figuring out over the next few months if they're going to renegotiate these deals. They've opened this window to try to do that with ESPN and Fox. And listen, Brett Yormark, I'll tell you this. Here's what he's going to do. He's going to value his league at some number that no one has ever valued him at before. He's got that to him.
Yeah.
Because he said, you know what they haven't done at the Big 12 tournament in 10 years? Raise prices. They're raising prices. So your Big 12 tournament's going to cost more, and you're going to get a chance to sit down in the front row. And they're going to send, me and the
Lupica.
Lupica won't be here. I haven't seen Mike Lupica here anytime. But anyway, so it's interesting. And we'll have Big 12 basketball men's media days tomorrow. We'll be down there. We're going to hear from Coach Tang and Coach Self and all the folks down there. It's a fun thing. It's an exciting time for this league. And I'm actually looking forward to – I'm going to try to put it on the calendar and go next year. I haven't been to the Big 12 football media days in a while. Next year could be wild. You're going to have 14. You're going to have the 4 newbies and all that,
Do you think Oklahoma and Texas are playing through 2025?
I guess.
What I heard there was I've met with them, and our conversations are about them staying through 2025. And it might
it's
be
a big number not to.
Right. And it might be yes, I want you to stay through 2025. You guys are going to stay through 2025. Unless this number over here is hit. But if you guys aren't near that, we're staying through. Our conversations are about you guys staying around and being great partners for those 2 years. Because if not, this is the number to get out.
Right.
And so if you want to do that, then that's the number. But we're not negotiating, we're discussing you staying around.
We, the conference, will not negotiate this breakup.
Yeah.
You can buy us out if you
right.
make that happen. But publicly,
Absolutely.
we're saying we would love to have OU in Texas for 2 more years.
They're not coming off their number. The league, they said you signed this thing.
And they shouldn't. They have them on ink.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
There's ways to do it.
NFL breaking news. You know the NFL news. It never stops.
Never.
The NFL and Amazon have announced that in 2023, Prime Video will exclusively stream a Black Friday game the Friday after Thanksgiving. The first ever NFL Black Friday game will take place on November 24th, 2023, next Thanksgiving, obviously, with an expected kickoff time of 3 p.m. Eastern. Teams are TBD. That all courtesy of Ian Rappaport.
Black Friday.
Interesting.
Friday football.
Which is great.
I don't want to talk to my family.
Get in the way of my college football.
Give me football.
I was going to say, there's always some good college football. I mean, Mizzou and Arkansas.
That's the battle lines, bro.
I want to eat leftovers and watch NFL football. How are you guys not excited about this? This is incredible news.
Bring it. I'm excited. Are you excited about post-game on Christmas Eve?
It's a noon game.
There you go.
It's a noon game.
You think it's a short show?
Noon game and a Saturday. Yeah, good point. I haven't thought about that too much, but
here are the games.
More
played.
excited about that noon kickoff on New Year's Day.
Here are the games played on Black Friday traditionally in college football. Mississippi State, Mississippi,
Egg
Bowl. NC State, UNC,
not the NFL.
True.
Battle lines.
Baylor, Texas.
It's been there.
Arizona State.
We used to have Texas and Texas A&M and Nebraska, Colorado.
Yep. Arkansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, UCLA, Cal,
That's
and
the
then
victory,
Florida State.
They call that the Heroes game.
Yeah.
Nebraska and Iowa. Heroes, I think.
Florida and Florida State.
Give me Broncos Colts!
So those are the games.
Russell!
And now
Give me Russ!
Can you promise me Russ will be cooking?
Let Russ cook Thanksgiving dinner!
Leftovers.
That might be more accurate to him anyway at this point. Russell Wilson, leftovers.
They almost got a first down in the overtime last night.
Yeah.
Did they? I don't know if they almost did. Not really.
Nobody got a first down.
No, but someone almost got one.
Let Russ use the microwave.
Reheat these.
Let Russ reheat.
All right. We will take a timeout. We got a little Fact or Fiction coming up next.
Follow the show on Twitter at J810Anderson, at JB Brisco, at Beards McFly. and at Sports Radio 810. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Beards, what's your sleep paralysis demon look like? Mine looks like Jason.
What do you mean you haven't seen that movie?
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, let's play a little Fact or Fiction here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Brisco, Beards. Todd Leabo hanging out with us until 2 o'clock. Get some Fact or Fiction rolling here. Josh, you good to go?
I'm good to go.
Did you write your Fact or Fictions in the break?
No, I wrote them down during a break earlier in the show.
Oh, okay.
It's been at least 2 breaks since these have all been done.
I wrote them down while you were talking with Teicher.
Yeah, I mean, look. I knew Braden was going to tell us that nobody cares, so I could just kind of check out and write some Fact or Fiction.
Yeah.
That's right. It's Fact or Fiction. We go 12 down. These things are all objective statements of fact. It is either true or it isn't. It really is remarkable that you guys aren't better at the game.
True.
But such is life. Leabo, you open us up. So Fact or Fiction number 1, the Chiefs should just bite the bullet and trade for Christian McCaffrey.
Fiction.
I don't know what was so funny about that one. Beards, what do you think?
Is it still 16 number 1 picks? Is that the asking?
We don't know. We don't really know what the Panthers are asking for.
Josh, has somebody swapped your body in the last 24 hours?
That's the thing.
I'll never tell.
I'm going fiction on that one.
Yeah, it's fiction based on who is asking the question.
I just wanted to get you all off on an easy win here. What did I say?
I got a dub.
Little layup. That's a dub because that's obviously fiction.
It's a total fabrication.
As we talked about, as exclusively reported on the Zone yesterday, the Panthers are. Don't mark that one. As exclusively reported yesterday on the Zone, the Panthers are desperately trying to raise the asking price on Christian McCaffrey. I just wanted to start this round with a win, is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Well, see
synonymous with what you said.
Remembers to cut that one on Friday.
It was smart when they gave him a lot of money.
Well, look, they're knocking down the doors, or maybe they're not, because number 2, Fact or Fiction, the Carolina Panthers do have serious bidders on Christian McCaffrey. Fact or Fiction?
Serious?
They have at least one serious bidder.
As in, they're going to give up all these picks that they're talking about, or just somebody
just have
is
to answer
very
the question,
interested
Beard.
in?
Just the Fact or Fiction?
I'll go fact. Somebody's dumb.
Yeah, I just I'm with Beards on this. Is it serious that somebody's seriously interested in wanting Christian McCaffrey on their team? Yeah, I think there's probably plenty. Is somebody serious about paying a first or second rounder or both to get Christian McCaffrey? I'm going to say fiction on that.
This is the real football
you're not
or
with
fantasy
Beards.
football?
I'm fact or fiction.
Are you
both
with
fact.
Beards or not?
I'm fact. If you say serious is a team is actually interested in
You're
having
calling
Christian
that
McCaffrey,
fiction.
I'm saying that's fact. If a team is willing to give up a first rounder,
You gotta
is
answer
that
the
serious?
question, Jason.
I'm going to say that's fiction.
Okay, Leabo?
This is real football or fantasy football? Is your league or
This
something?
is the NFL.
Okay,
Yes, I'll give
fiction.
you that clarifying question. It's fiction, and Jason
All right,
doesn't
I
get a
won.
point because he
Yes.
said fact. So only
No,
Leabo.
I said fiction.
Only
You said
Leabo
it
gets
both,
the
you
point
cheater.
there.
I totally
I
said
said the
fiction.
phrase serious bidders, and that means that there's
Oh,
been,
well, why didn't you restate
know.
the question? I'm giving myself a point. on that
I'm
one.
not giving Jason a point. Listen,
I literally said if you're talking about.
literally said
I literally said if
Jason
you're
didn't
talking
touch
about
second base. We threw it back
giving
to.
up a draft pick. No, nobody's interested
Why
in
didn't you
giving
just
that up.
restate the question that I'm supposed to be listening to the first time you
No.
ask it?
No.
I'm going to give myself a point. 2 to
You
1.
give yourself all the points you want.
Yeah,
little
give
fella.
yourself 12 points.
I just gave myself 12 points. I'm up 14 to 2 to 1.
Fact or
gonna
fiction?
win.
Fact or fiction for the Chiefs here? The most damaging move of the Brett Veach era was ultimately the trade and extension for Frank Clark. Fact or fiction? Beards, you got first here, right?
Nope.
No, Jason's up first this
Me,
time.
I'm up first. Well, I think it's both.
Yeah,
now,
for
are you
sure.
saying
So we're
the
going to give Jason a point regardless. So it'll help speed this game up. They just give Jason 12 and then Leabo and
Both.
Beards play.
Somehow still gonna lose.
Your turn. Well, I got all of them right and all of them wrong as well. I'm going to say fiction.
Fiction.
It's fiction.
done
It's
worse.
you. It's going to be Clyde.
It's Clyde.
Oh, it's a fact.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought that was gonna. I thought we were all gonna be on the same page on that one.
It's you. It's I thought for sure it was going to be Clyde.
The Clyde pick is the most embarrassing move
speaks.
of the Brett Veach era, and that would be as well. But in terms of damaging, I chose the word damaging on purpose. The consequences of that we talked about earlier in the show. Those have been found today. I mean, this is a years long consequences here.
But Frank Clark has a ring and is part of winning and help them win the ring.
Exactly.
Edwards-Helaire does not have a ring.
And that's how we decide these things.
And if they had, yes.
The most damaging thing is
Do you know
picking
for a
up that
fact
fifth-year option.
Do you know for a fact that Frank Clark, that they'd have a ring if they didn't trade for Frank Clark? You don't.
I sure don't.
You know what we do know?
We all lost. He's wrong.
I know, but you know what we do know?
They got one.
Is that they have one with Frank Clark.
You know, if you want to all give yourselves a point,
I'm not going to. We all
it's
lost.
okay. You all had the same answer. It
It's
doesn't
okay.
matter.
Doesn't
we all
matter.
lost. I'm just curious on
I think we
the
all
thought
won.
process of
Josh
the
lost.
Frank Clark was
Josh
a huge
lost.
mistake.
No, the
Well,
most
tell
damaging.
him that
The
too.
most
Damaging.
damaging move was Frank Clark. The worst process was the Clyde pick, maybe the Speaks pick. But in terms of the impact it had on the franchise, it was the picks of Clyde or of Breland Speaks, and also a $100 million contract. I mean, that is an albatross of a deal following you shorthanding yourselves on picks.
And I guess damaging is relative for a team that's gone to 4 straight AFC Championship games and won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about Frank Clark. I don't know. All right, so okay, fact or fiction.
It's all good.
Fact or fiction. On the oh boy, I can't. Well,
I'm up. Come on, bring me a
Leabo's
question.
up.
I think that's right.
Fact or
Todd.
fiction? The Chiefs are perfect and have never made a mistake. No, fact or fiction? Leabo.
Fact.
The Bills were unlucky on Sunday and in a rematch would beat the Chiefs by double digits.
I kind of feel this is fact because I felt like the Chiefs were. I chose to be glass half fully a little bit yesterday, but I'm kind of glass half empty on this. So I'm going to put it on. I'm going to say that's a fact. The Bills are better than the Chiefs and would beat them if they didn't make mistakes on their own. Is that the way to answer it? Fact. If I think the Bills would win by double digits,
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm out here on a limb.
I'm asking this for the very specifics of this. Is this a complete rematch of the game on Sunday with everybody who was injured not there?
Why is he ruining everything? Who
I'm not
brought
gonna- I'm
Beards
not
to this
asking
party?
Just say
questions
fact
anymore.
or fiction, Beards.
I'm not
I'll
asking
go
any questions
fiction.
anymore.
What did Leabo say?
Leabo said
fact.
fact. I'll go fiction.
I'm going fiction.
It's fiction.
No. He's a glass half fully guy, always.
I think the Bills got a little lucky. I just don't. I don't think. I
Not
would
double
feel
digit lucky.
It would be 2.5 again. I think the point spread, maybe 3 again, wherever it ended up if they rematch.
How about if the one guy didn't fall down in the end zone?
That would have
They'd won by
also-
double digits this time.
or had the ball bounce off of his face on
Yeah.
the pitch out. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
that part
that's
either.
why I
Okay.
think the Bills might have been a little unlucky, and also I think the Chiefs were a little bad. Fact or fiction? The Chiefs' running backs are the biggest issue on the offense right now.
They're the most damaging issue.
That's the question.
Define
This is
issue.
good. I love playing this game every week.
I'll go
The-
fact. I'll go fact to keep it moving.
Thank you,
I'm
Beards.
going to go fiction.
Reread the question. I'm sorry. I would listen.
The Chiefs' running game is the biggest issue for Casey's running backs are the biggest issue for Casey's offense.
Fact. No.
fiction.
I'm going to say fiction.
Well, you said fact.
Damn
Oh,
it.
you did say
it's
fact.
it's the tackles.
It's
Tackles.
the line. I would give
Well,
it to
there
the
you go.
line
Give me
in
that
general.
point then.
I'm
Because
gonna
I
give the
had your
point-
right answer.
I'm giving the point to Todd.
Thanks,
Beards
buddy.
did not get the point.
No points for you, Beards. You out, son.
Jason's point total here today is
With this, we'll
Four.
all under review.
Right now, it's 4 to 3 to 2. I've
still
got
have 14,
4.
don't you?
Todd, yeah. Well, I had 12 then, so yeah, now I got 14.
We'll
You're right.
compare scores at the end, man.
That's what I'm also doing here. Don't worry about it.
I'm
I'll
showing
have
my-
the official scores at the end. It's
I'm
like boxing. You get the scores when we're done.
That's
I'm
right.
showing my work too. We're both showing our work.
There's a judge. You're a judge. Beards is a judge.
Fact or fiction? Nick Bosa would single-handedly change my confidence level betting the Chiefs in this game.
Fact.
Fact.
Sure, fact.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fact. He just really seems like he could mess some things up. I don't like it.
Well, considering the previous question was about the tackles,
Yeah, fair enough.
then leads into the next question about Nick Bosa.
Well,
sometimes.
Every once in a while.
Use the test against itself sometimes.
Sometimes we listen too hard.
Fact or fiction? I fully enjoy a nice evening where the temperature gets below freezing. Fact or fiction?
I think you'd like it cold, but I don't know if you like it that cold. I'm looking at Beards. He knows more about this.
I know. I'm glad I'm going after Beards.
Fiction.
You enjoy, correct? That's the phrasing?
Enjoys below freezing.
Hold on. I fully enjoy a nice evening below freezing.
I'm on Leabo's path here. I'll go fiction.
That's fiction.
I didn't say I liked being outside when it's below freezing. I fully enjoy a nice
Okay,
evening
how
below
about that?
freezing. That's a fact.
That's a fact. Yeah, it's a fact.
I
about
just
that? Good for you.
I had a nice evening last night. You
You
know,
like
It's
it
just-
chilly.
I like a little chilly basement.
Snuggle up.
Kind of feel like that would be immaterial of what the temperature is outside.
That's-
If you were just
Yeah,
inside
but
the whole
it-
time.
You have a
still,
basement?
When it's really cold outside, it's a little different feel inside.
Well, look,
My
let's
wife
see.
was sitting there last night. She's
is
like,
true.
"It feels cold now." So I said, "Look at the thermostat. It's exactly what it says all the time."
You're
It
right.
feels
just
different. It just feels different.
It's different. She didn't like it last night.
It feels colder in the morning during the winter around the bathroom, even though it's the same temperature as than in the summer. But during the summer.
I fully agree with that, which makes this next question, guys. This one could be really interesting. Fact or fiction? I have not yet turned on the heat in my home this year. Not calendar year, since
the season.
Yeah, I'm sure it was running in January. It's not a trick question. Yeah, this season.
I'll go.
You haven't or have?
I have not yet turned on the heat in my home.
I'll go fiction.
Yeah, you wouldn't enjoy a below freezing night if it was fact. I'm going fiction.
I think you might not have wanted to, but I think Renee probably did.
Yeah. And Scout.
So
and
I'm going that's fiction. You've turned it on.
It's fiction. And I turned it on this morning because the bathroom is too cold.
It's damn cold.
I got up. It was beautiful last night, a little chilly. Got up this morning, thinking about taking a shower. Thought, not yet, I'm not.
Nope.
No, thank you. It is too cold for me to get naked.
Take the nip off that a little bit.
A lot of nips going on around that time of the morning.
A couple weeks ago on a Saturday morning, I like it a little bit cold in the house.
Me too.
My wife said,
"You like a little nip in the house?"
It's too cold. She went and started pushing buttons.
Don't touch my buttons. I like it a little chilly. It's just got me this morning in the bathroom.
You don't need to shower up like that.
No, I don't want to exit the bath. I don't want to exit the shower with icicles.
No,
that's no good.
No, it's the worst.
Fact or fiction here, everybody. This one's an easy fact. The NBA season begins tonight. Hello,
fact.
It's back.
Is it really?
And fact or fiction, I definitely know the name of the new head coach of the Boston Celtics.
Fiction.
Beards has probably said it out loud to you, so I think, but you maybe don't remember. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to take a risk and say fact that you recalled something that Beard said out loud.
I'll go fact.
What's his name, Beards?
Joe Mazzulla.
I did not know the name of Joe Mazzulla. I mean, I definitely heard it, read it at some point, but
We've had discussions about this before.
Negative.
I don't remember the name of the guy who got fired.
He's not fired yet.
Yeah, he's not.
Well,
Ime Udoka is away from the team.
Okay, he's away.
Beards, did you get that one right?
No.
Okay.
Only me.
All right. Fact or fiction?
I now have 16.
I lost $25, the max bet allowable on Justin Herbert last night.
Fact.
I'm just glad DraftKings didn't set that limit higher.
They only let me bet 10. So lucky.
Really?
I lost. Didn't he throw a touchdown? They called it back?
No, I don't think they ever even got that warm. If so, it was right at the beginning of the game. No, I don't think he ever got close.
Okay, because I thought he threw one. I thought I looked at my app and it said like Mike Williams touchdown, and maybe he didn't.
Mike
catch
Williams on the sideline almost had an incredible catch, but that was somewhere.
Are you a fact on this, Beards?
Beards, do you think I lost $25 on
I
the
think I'm behind.
boosted plus 100 par? Yeah, of course I did.
I'll go ahead and say fact.
Yeah,
too.
I sure did. You already knew that I did.
Know. Yeah, we both did.
They only let me bet 10. You must be a high roller. Good for you.
Not anymore. I'm not.
It said max bet was 25. I was like, yeah, that's.
I must be small potatoes. I only got to do 10.
They boosted it from what, minus 810 to plus 100?
Yeah.
Like, seems like it's free money.
Seems like they did get some free money, didn't they?
But see, that's the thing about that. I think they just stumbled into that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a loss leader.
It's not like they put Russell Wilson.
Right, that was a loss leader. That was hey, we're going to get people to be more active, and hey, they can do this, whatever. All right. Breaking news.
Per Ian Rappaport, Broncos linebacker Aaron Patrick has suffered a torn ACL and is out for the year.
That sucks. You see how he did it? You see how he tore his ACL last night?
I wasn't watching last night.
I was. I don't think I caught that.
On special teams, he was running on the sideline, and he tried to dodge one of the reporters on the sideline, and it landed his left knee when he planted to try to get around the guy and hold him up.
Because they just resumed
the team's 5th ACL tear.
They weren't playing the Raiders. Devontae Adams would push that guy down.
Yeah. Well, they both hit each other, and he was trying to hold him up, and his left knee hit, and it looked like it popped.
Don't try to be nice.
And he was laying there, and you're like, oh no, I really hope that's not that bad because that's just unfortunate.
Who's up?
Today, fact or fiction? Today, the DraftKings boosted parlay is that LeBron, Steph Curry, and Joel Embiid will all score 20 or more points tonight. All three of them each have to do that, but that's the boosted parlay. Fact or fiction?
Beards.
I put another $25 on that.
Fact. Abso-factly.
Yeah, it's a fact.
Yeah, it's a fact.
You guys, none of you think that I just took a day to cool off?
No.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
Of course it's a fact.
I saw on PBS.
But now,
what's
I'm
the max
logging
bet
on
on that?
DraftKings.com right now.
The max bet on that one is 50, and I only did 25.
But here's the thing: how smart is that? The max bet is 50 because they think of all the people that lost the 25 last night on the Justin Herbert boost and go, All right, well, people are now gonna double up catch up. Go throw 50 there and win
boost.
some money.
I just went 25 because
I bet I don't get 25.
One little hammy, and all of a sudden Steph Curry's out of the game with 18, and I'm never betting again. Factor fiction here. That's fair, probably. Number 12. I have a DeAndre Ayton same-game parlay betting on a 20-point double-double with at least 1 block and at least 1 assist because I believe in DeAndre Ayton in the year 2022. Beard should have to go last on this.
I'm actually first on this one, so it doesn't work out because Beards was supposed to go first on that one.
I'll go first here. The line.
That's fine, but if he's supposed to go last on this, we'll just do it. That is fiction.
Betting on DeAndre Ayton.
I think that's fiction.
You're really not a DeAndre Ayton fan this year. I'll go fiction.
It's a fact. DeAndre T season, baby. He gets one shot. He gets this shot tonight, and it's either going to be DeAndre Ayton season or it's going to be trade for Kevin Durant in January.
Man, if only you had Jalen Smith still.
I don't want to talk about it. At least they drafted Josh Jackson.
They only let me bet 10, but I'm in.
Oh, you bet 10 on that one again?
I must be small better.
Small potatoes.
What is?
I don't know. They're against me.
Have you tried putting real money in there? I don't know.
Well, it's mostly their money.
Yeah, I was going to say.
How many more we got left here?
That was it, baby. That was 12.
Right.
On the other side of the break, we'll do the tiebreaker.
Oh, do we? Because it's 9-7-6 by my count.
Doesn't matter. We're doing tiebreaker.
Yeah, no.
Even if I didn't get that point, it's still 8-7-6.
Sorry, you had a factor. No. You had a factor fiction violation, which actually docked you a point. So you and Leabo are actually tied with 6.
There you go for being a
But
smart
I had
ass.
9.
On the other side of the break, who will be in the NBA Finals? That's your question. Who is the matchup in the NBA Finals for your tiebreaker on Factor Fiction? We decide the winner of Factor Fiction because everyone's tied next.
Carl Sheffers.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts. The Zone with Jason Anderson.
Their fans will go ape shit.
Oh, whoa. You just said it on the air. What is wrong with you?
Weekdays from 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, so the score is 9-7-6, so let's do this tiebreaker.
Yeah, it's 7-all. There was Jason forfeited a point and then had to donate one to Beards and Leabo.
It's
So we're
slot
tied.
machine. We're 7-7-7.
It's 7-7-7 right now. The tiebreaker, of course. Who will be the two teams in the NBA Finals?
I didn't think about this during the break, did I?
Well, I offered it to you, you know.
I don't remember you saying that.
Look.
Definitely said it.
Oh,
Sounds
did he
like
say
another
it?
point violation to me.
Jason's actually
Did you
been
say it?
eliminated.
He did.
Yeah, I
I was
certainly
just trying to
did.
figure
You were
out.
calling him Carl Cheffers when
Yeah,
you
you
said
were
it.
like, this Carl Jeffers over here officiating this thing. I was just trying to figure out how it was a tiebreaker and all that stuff, so.
Okay.
Well, Beards, you want to go first since you've got one going?
Yeah,
Sure.
go first,
Sure.
Beards.
You probably want Suns Nets, so that the Suns can win, and then we can just watch the Nets completely turn into a giant dumpster fire.
Okay, good
on
to know.
national TV.
Sure. Is that your official prediction?
It's for this one, yes.
My prediction, it's the Beards and Brisco, Celtics and Suns.
Wow.
And the friendship is over.
It would really test us.
It really would.
It would really, really test us.
Good thing Rudy's not here.
That also very true.
Well, listen, our Nugs ain't going anywhere.
Whoa, no, the Nugs are a nice bet right now.
No, they're not going
the Nugs
anywhere.
are healthy, man.
They're not.
Believe in your Nugs.
The Nugs will not be healthy.
The Nugs are going to be healthy,
Right
man.
up until
Trust your
Michael
Nugs.
Porter Jr. plays a game.
Yeah.
Trust your Nugs. Yeah, Michael Porter Jr. is going to stay hurt, but Jamal Murray's back.
It won't work.
Warriors Celtics.
Okay, so what's the answer? You don't have anything written down.
Oh, I know what I want
Okay.
the finals to be.
Well,
what is it?
What's the answer?
The correct answer.
Suns Sixers.
I would also enjoy that. The correct answer. Beards is very close. Let me explain. The way this NBA season should, nay, must, nay, will end is not with the Suns vanquishing the Brooklyn Nets in the finals, sending them into total disarray, Beards.
They're already in disarray.
It will be Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant eliminating DeAndre Ayton and the Brooklyn Nets in the NBA Finals. Beards is victorious here on the eve of the NBA season. Who else could have been the champion today
You've
if
made
not
this trade.
Beards?
When's this trade going down?
January.
January?
I think January is the earliest it can happen. Unless my DeAndre Ayton bet tonight or tomorrow night cashes, and then DeAndre Ayton is back.
Also, it's not the eve of the NBA season, it's the day.
That's true.
Day of.
The morn of the NBA season.
The cold morn when I had to bring my heater on.
Below freezing night of the
brisk
NBA.
October morn. The dawn of the NBA season is here.
What time do our Suns play tonight?
Suns are tomorrow.
Oh.
Tonight's
Sixers Celtics at 6:30, and
That's
then Lakers Warriors at 9.
Bang.
Sixers Celtics.
So you got game
Andrew
5.
Toney.
Game 5 starting at 3 o'clock, and then Sixers Celtics starts at 6:30. So that'll be like the 5th inning of Game 5.
And we got Black Friday football.
3.5 hours later.
We can bet on the first 5 in the baseball game, shift over to basketball. Everybody cares.
Everybody I know. Thank you, Todd.
All right.
Program's next.